Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. Bienvenue à cette deuxième édition de l'événement d'information, mais aussi un événement de financement qu'on appelle Hockey 911. Tout ça, c'est au profit de la Fondation de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the second edition of Hockey 911. It's an event. It's an informative, but also a fundraising event for the Montreal General Hospital's Foundation. Il y a un thème à cette deuxième édition qui, évidemment, est différente de celle qu'on a vécue à notre première édition l'année dernière, évidemment en raison de la pandémie. Moi, je suis dans mon studio ici, le studio Nocturne qui est à Montréal. La majorité de nos invités de ce soir, parmi lesquels des joueurs de hockey, Shea Weber, Brendan Gallagher, Nick Suzuki, parmi lesquels Claude Julien, Kirk Muller, parmi lesquels du personnel aussi médical et du personnel administratif qui sont avec nous, mais ils sont évidemment en différé, pas en différé, mais plutôt en distanciation. Ils sont chez eux, ce qui est parfait. L'événement donc, de ce soir, comme je le disais, c'est un événement de financement. Vous pouvez participer au financement de la Fondation de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal en participant à notre encan silencieux. Vous voyez au bas de votre écran où vous pouvez carrément faire un don. Mais c'est surtout aussi un événement d'information. Vous devez vous douter qu'il y a un rapport serré entre le Canadien de Montréal et l'Hôpital Général de Montréal. Parce que le Canadien était au Forum, c'était l'hôpital le plus proche. Mais évidemment, il y a un lien de parenté maintenant, de proximité entre les médecins qui se sont occupés des athlètes, de nos joueurs de hockey, pas seulement ceux du Canadien, mais ceux des équipes qui visitent aussi, et dans des situations qui sont traumatiques. Mais c'est justement ça la spécialité de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal, les cas de trauma. Et ça n'arrive pas juste à des joueurs de hockey, ça arrive aussi à monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Now, this fundraising event tonight is different from the one we held last year. It's super important. Obviously, anyone anyone can tell that there's a relationship, a fantastic relationship between the Montreal General Hospital and the Montreal Canadiens for obvious reasons. First of all, the hospital is the closest to the old farm. It's also true about the Bell Center. There is a relationship between the players of the Montreal Canadiens and visiting teams as well, because some stuff happens. Traumatic stuff happens. And this is a specialty at the Montreal General Hospital. Trauma. It's a trauma center, and it's so important to have a trauma center in downtown Montreal. Obviously, the people who will use the services of the Montreal General Hospital are not only hockey players, the population, and they're not only from Montreal, they're from the surrounding area as well. So if you want to contribute to the evening, you can do so by participating in our silent auction. You can see there's a place at the bottom of your screen where you can do that, and you can also make a donation. Otherwise, we have some terrific stuff happening tonight. We've got interviews with Shea Weber, with Nick Suzuki, with Brendan Gallagher, with Claude Julien, with Kirk Muller. We have the medical staff as well, and administrative staff, to go over what happened, especially in the last few weeks and the last few months, with this very, very special playoffs that we went through. This is why our theme tonight is playoff emergencies. Notre thème ce soir, c'est des urgences des séries éliminatoires. Il y aura des histoires à raconter, évidemment, mais quand ça nous arrive à nous dans la vraie vie, là, hein, c'est comme les séries éliminatoires quand il nous arrive quelque chose de traumatique. On va commencer par un mot du... je vous mentionne que c'est un événement bilingue, évidemment, parce que ça va se passer en deux langues. Je ne vais pas tout traduire, mais éventuellement, l'ensemble de ce qui se passe ce soir va être sur nos réseaux sociaux et sur le site de la Fondation, et vous pourrez y avoir accès avec une traduction. Vous pouvez vous joindre à moi. On a un service de chat. Vous allez pouvoir poser des questions. Je vais essayer de poser les questions que vous avez pour nos invités de ce soir. Vous voyez là aussi sur votre page, vous voyez comment vous joindre au chat. Il y en a plein qui sont déjà là. Il y en a même qui sont à l'extérieur du Québec, à l'extérieur du Canada. Je vois un petit message d'Alexandre qui est en Californie. C'est super. You can join me by participating on our chat. If you have questions for our guests tonight, I'll try to get some of those questions to our guests. We'll start with a word du président-directeur général de la Fondation, M. Jean-Guy Gourdeau.
Bonsoir à tous et merci d'être parmi nous ce soir afin de célébrer la longue relation qui unit les équipes médicales de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal et les Canadiens de Montréal. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for this special event created to celebrate the long-lasting relationship between the Montreal General Hospital's medical teams and the Montreal Canadiens. La Fondation de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal est fière de revenir avec la deuxième édition de l'événement bénéfice Hockey 911 en soutien aux soins vitaux offerts à toute la communauté. Parce que les médecins qui traitent les joueurs professionnels sont les mêmes médecins qui soignent la population. Et nous sommes réunis ce soir pour les soutenir à notre tour. We're back with the second edition of Hockey 911, a fundraiser to support vital care for all because the doctors who take care of the players are the same as the ones providing care to all of us in the community, and we are all here to support them tonight. A few months ago, our foundation launched a major fundraising campaign called Code Life. It's an appeal to all for your generosity to support vital care for all. Il y a quelques mois déjà, notre fondation lançait la grande campagne Code Vie, afin de lancer un appel à tous, un appel à votre générosité pour offrir un soutien pour des soins vitaux. Today, more than ever, we hope you will make an act of generosity by supporting our medical teams and the innovative programs and research they lead, even through these difficult times. Je tiens à remercier nos commanditaires. Thank you to our sponsors, Fiera Capital, Molson Coors, Banque Nationale, Bell, et Groupe des Chênes. And thank you to all of our partners who joined us again this year. I would also like to thank the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens Hockey Organization, and our organizing committee, including our co-presidents, Andrew Molson, Dr. David Mulder, François Xavier Seigneur, and our other committee members, Gregory Charles, our MC for this evening, and Doctors Tarek Razek, Dan Deckelbaum, and Greg Berry. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening with our special guests in this virtual and interactive formula. Merci beaucoup.
Bonsoir à tous. Good evening, everyone. Je suis très heureux d'être parmi vous ce soir, virtuellement, et d'assister à cette belle soirée au profit de la Fondation de l'Hôpital général de Montréal. Fiera Capital, pour ceux qui ne le savent pas, est une entreprise qui a été fondée et est gérée mondialement à Montréal. Et nous avons à cœur de soutenir nos institutions montréalaises, telles que l'Hôpital général de Montréal. We're really proud to partner with the Montreal General Hospital Foundation for tonight's event and for a second year in a row. Tonight, we salute the strength of character, the dedication, and the desire to achieve under challenging circumstances demonstrated by the staff of the Montreal General Hospital. Who could better represent these qualities in the world of professional sports than Shay, Brandon, and Nick? Individuals who have time and again demonstrated the courage and dedication to excel at their craft, to perform on the biggest stage in the best league in the world while hurt. One is a giant of a man, the other considered of modest size by NHL standards, and the rookie with an almost virgin penalty box track record, but all of hearts the size of our country. En tant que fan de hockey à mes heures, je suis curieux de découvrir les coulisses de leurs blessures, les plus marquantes et d'entendre leurs anecdotes au sujet des dernières séries de fin de saison qui, comme vous le savez, dû à la période que nous vivons actuellement, ont eu lieu dans une bulle à Toronto. Like all of you do, I'm really looking forward to things going back to normal and to a new NHL season. On behalf of Fiera Capital, thanks to all of you for making this evening a success. Fiera Capital is proud to be associated with the cause. Je vous souhaite une très belle soirée. Have a good evening, everyone, et donnez généreusement. Merci.
Merci donc à nos commanditaires qui rendent cet événement possible ce soir. Je vais vous expliquer que notre événement de ce soir est un peu construit comme une diffusion d'un match de hockey, c'est-à-dire qu'on a une période de réchauffement, c'est la période dans laquelle on rentre maintenant. On aura une première période, une deuxième période, une troisième période, et puis peut-être qu'on aura une prolongation. Et dans tout ça, on a des invités extrêmement intéressants. Our event tonight is just like a hockey presentation, a hockey game. We've got a warm-up. This is the period we just got into right now. We'll have a first period, second period, a third period, and maybe overtime. Hopefully, we get overtime. And interesting guests in every one of those periods. Dans le réchauffement, on va s'intéresser à comment on a réussi à se préparer pour les séries éliminatoires très spéciales qu'on a vécues cette année dans une bulle. Our warm-up is going to be dedicated to understanding how we got to prepare for this year's very special playoff setting in a bubble. Et pour ça, on a comme invité le thérapeute de sport en chef du Canadien de Montréal, Graham Reinben. Nous avons aussi le médecin en chef de la Ligue nationale de hockey, Willem Mouissa. On a avec nous la vice-présidente exécutive du groupe CH, France-Margaret Bélanger. And we also have like a very, very famous face, especially if you've been following the Montreal Canadiens and you've all been at the Montreal General Hospital. Le médecin en chef des Canadiens de Montréal, Dr. David Mulder. Good evening, Dr. Mulder. I'm going to start with you. We've got everyone else connected with us. Bonsoir à tout le monde. Merci d'être là. Dr. Mulder, we have a nice set of guests. You chose these guests for this warm-up. What did it represent this year, preparing for this special occasion, this special way of doing things with the playoffs?
Well, I don't think there's ever been anything as unusual as the circumstances we were presented with following a March 12th pause of the NHL. We then sort of spent the summer in quarantine, and we began in late June trying to prepare for getting our team, who are going to be in the playoffs, off to Toronto in a bubble. I can't tell you how many different circumstances we faced dealing with administration, the Quebec government, the National Hockey League. And I guess the person who bailed us out most often was Dr. Mouissa and perhaps Julie Grand in New York. Mm-hmm. They were absolutely invaluable in preparing us. And I think Graham Reinband, who you're going to hear from tonight,
yep,
bore the brunt of the load in terms of preparing us, in terms of testing all our athletes, in terms of PPE, protective equipment, and imagine sanitizing the environment. But before we could even get started, as always in Quebec, we had to get permission from the Quebec government.
Yeah, you say that with a laugh, but it was something.
Well, the National Hockey League, Dr. Mouissa and his group, they sent us a protocol or guidelines, mm-hmm. Which I thought were very carefully prepared, covered everything. I thought there couldn't have been more comprehensive, but we went through them line by line with the public health department. And we were very fortunate that we had a former member of the staff of the Montreal General Hospital, Dr. Richard Massa, and he helped us, and he was an incredible help in making all this happen.
So preparing went well. France, dites-nous, qu'est-ce que ça a représenté, France, de devoir préparer une équipe de hockey qui a l'habitude de jouer dans son propre environnement et de préparer une équipe de hockey à jouer dans une bulle, dans une autre province?
Oui, c'est une bonne question. Déjà, on avait notre magicien en chef avec le Dr. Mulder qui vraiment, c'est quand même pas mal lui qui a tout orchestré ça pour nous avec la collaboration qu'il y a eu de Dr. Mouissa de la Ligue nationale qui est avec nous, ainsi qu'avec Julie Grant au niveau juridique de la Ligue nationale, puis aussi localement au niveau, parce que ça prenait l'autorisation du gouvernement du Québec, bien sûr, de Dr. Richard Massé pour obtenir, premièrement, l'accord du gouvernement pour être capable d'ouvrir notre centre de pratique à Brossard pour que les joueurs puissent y venir pratiquer, faire un genre de mini training camp avant de se diriger vers Toronto. Alors c'est comme ça que ça a procédé. On a aussi dû traiter avec le gouvernement fédéral afin que le fédéral puisse nous aider un peu avec les restrictions relatives au niveau de la quarantaine que les joueurs devaient faire à Montréal. Alors, on a été capable d'adopter ça un peu pour eux. Mais tout ça, c'était sous la direction du Dr. Mulder.
France, sans nous dévoiler des secrets incroyables, là, parce qu'on ne veut pas mettre personne dans le trouble, est-ce que ça s'est passé aussi bien que vous l'espériez, mieux que vous l'espériez, ou alors est-ce qu'il y a des affaires que malgré toute la préparation, ça ne s'est pas passé comme prévu?
Ben, il n'y a rien qui se passe comme prévu parce qu'on était face à l'imprévu. Alors, c'était très difficile de prévoir qu'est-ce qui allait se passer vraiment. Mais je pense que tout le monde avait pour objectif de reprendre le jeu. Puis, je dirais que même les autorités gouvernementales, bien sûr, qui ont la très lourde charge de tenter de gérer cette crise sanitaire-là, ont vraiment compris qu'est-ce qu'on essayait de faire. Puis, il y a la Ligue nationale, Dr. Mulder en faisait état. Le protocole en 4 phases que la Ligue nationale a mis de l'avant était quelque chose d'extrêmement détaillé, puis qui a donné énormément de confort aux autorités gouvernementales. Alors, avec tout ça, on a été capable quand même de procéder assez rapidement. Puis, je vous dirais que les autorités gouvernementales ont collaboré. Ils comprenaient, on avait un très court laps de temps pour tout mettre ça en place. Et ils ont très, très bien collaboré. Alors, on est super satisfait de la réponse.
France, je me fais le porte-parole et je vois la question passer aussi. Ça a vraiment fait plaisir. Ça a surpris d'une part, en plus du Canadien qui nous a surpris dans les séries, mais ça a surpris que ça marche, cette affaire-là. Et là, évidemment, on est au milieu du mois de novembre. Ça va-tu remarcher, ça, pour qu'on ait une saison aussi? Et sans engagement épouvantable, là, est-ce qu'on est assez positif que ça va se passer et bientôt?
Oui, ben c'est une excellente question. C'est vrai qu'on peut parler un peu du futur. On a une saison, en tout cas, on aimerait beaucoup avoir une saison qui débuterait, comme le commissaire Bettman l'a dit, en début 21. Et puis, je suis persuadée que la collaboration exceptionnelle qu'on a eue des autorités, tant au fédéral qu'au provincial, puis au niveau municipal aussi, on va être capable de retrouver ça pour la suite des choses. C'est sûr que, je répète, tout ce qui se passe au niveau du COVID, c'est très sérieux, puis c'est la santé et la sécurité de tous qui comptent. Mais je crois que si on est capable si la Ligue nationale nous demande d'organiser une saison à Montréal, c'est sûr qu'on va être capable de le faire avec la collaboration de tous. J'en suis absolument persuadée.
France, je ne vous lâche pas juste une seconde parce que, évidemment, le CH, dont vous êtes vice-présidente exécutive, c'est une affaire qui remplit des centres belles puis qui remplit un paquet d'autres salles, soit dit en passant, qui appartiennent aussi au groupe géré par Evenco puis tout ça. Préparer à recevoir des gens, peut-être, là, éventuellement, dans un endroit qui, en général, en reçoit 20 000, c'est un méchant gros défi.
Oui, c'est certain. Puis on va respecter les mesures des autorités sanitaires parce qu'en réalité, c'est eux qui vont vraiment donner le ton au niveau des partisans. On souhaiterait être capable de recevoir des partisans au Centre Bell le plus rapidement possible, bien sûr. Et puis, c'est évident qu'on a des plans de contingence pour un petit nombre de partisans, soit 4 000, 5 000, enfin, et ainsi de suite jusqu'à 21 302, qui est notre salle comble. Mm-hmm. Mais on aura beaucoup de mesures au niveau sanitaire, au niveau de sécurité. Évidemment, on a des plans pour ça, des sections de Centre Bell qui seraient un peu fermées, seulement accessibles aux groupes qui s'assoient dans ces sections-là, afin que les gens ne se croisent pas nécessairement au niveau du Centre Bell dans les passages en arrière pour respecter les mesures. Alors, on sera prêt, ça, c'est certain.
France, quelque chose me dit que peu importe c'est quoi les mesures qui sont proposées par le gouvernement pendant la période des fêtes, que vous n'aurez pas une grosse période des fêtes, vous autres. Je pense que vous allez être concentrés à ramener le hockey au Centre Bell et dans le reste de la Ligue au début de 2021.
Et on va le faire avec grand plaisir. Ça va être notre cadeau de Noël, on le souhaite.
Et un cadeau de Noël pour les amateurs de hockey qui s'ennuient. J'ai vu que M. Ryan Benn est de retour avec nous, Graham Ryan Benn, qui est le thérapeute de sport en chef. Graham, I'd like to ask you, did you prepare in any different way, specific way, because of what you had to do in the bubble this year? Well, not sure Graham can hear me. We'll work on that. Dr. Mawisa, can you hear me? Dr. Mawisa? I'm not sure Dr. Mawisa hears me either. Okay. I asked France if things went as they were planned and expected. On your side, did things go as expected?
I thought they went better than expected.
Really?
From in terms of the medical side and sort of the organizational side. Think back to 1918, 1919, 100 years ago when we had our last global pandemic.
Yep.
And the National Hockey League ended up with Seattle against Montreal, and they couldn't finish the series.
Yep. Have to cancel that.
We finished the series, and I think it was a credit to everybody, to the players, but I think the leadership provided by Dr. Mawissa and the NHL was exceptional.
Yeah, and that's why I wish I suppose we're still trying to work out the kinks here, but I did want to ask Mr. Reinben how you prepare athletes and how you prepare yourself as medical staff when you have to work in a bubble, which is it's not the same as preparing in a hospital or preparing in your own environment.
And I don't think anybody had ever been through anything like that. But Graham did remarkably well in terms of taking care of the players. I mean, the very first day of training camp, we had a player who had just arrived by private airplane, and he had the symptoms of COVID. And Graham detected it. Graham was wise enough that he told him he'd lost his sense of taste and smell. Mm-hmm. And Graham suspected COVID, and sure enough, he was our first positive. So Graham did a remarkable role. But he also provided equipment. He went out to drugstores and bought thermometers so people could check their temperature before coming to practice. Yeah. He did an amazing job.
And obviously you guys are so dedicated. I'm going to check one last time and see if Dr. Mawissa can hear me. Can you hear me, Dr. Mawissa? Mr. Reinben, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, so how was the experience of being in charge in a bubble for a bunch of super athletes? How was that experience?
Start. We've only got 20 more minutes, right?
Yeah. So, we've got less than that, but still interested.
It was a ride that was hang on, by the seat of your pants, and you just roll with the punches because every day was different. It started out with scrambling to try to find protective gear and equipment for the staff and for the players, and making sure there's enough hand sanitizer so that everyone can wash their hands. And then, we zipped over to the bubble when we thought we had it all under control. And then we had to do some new stuff that basically the league had us doing to make sure we were safe. And that was obviously testing every day and screening. And it was a wild ride. As far as the hockey went, the staff had to do a lot of packing and unpacking and packing and unpacking.
Yeah, we get it.
The medical staff, we actually had 3 different locations: hotel, practice rink, and game rink. So it was always a lot of shuffling, but you persevere, and you don't want to be that team that had the only or the first positive test or positive case. So we were very rigid, making sure that we kept our players and our staff and coaches and management as safe as possible.
I have one more question for you, because we talk about how dedicated the athletes were, and being in the bubble and away from their families and et cetera, which is the case. But obviously you guys were also in that bubble. So that meant you were away from your family and everything. Graham, how long did it take for you to get readjusted to real life after the bubble experience?
I'm not going to lie. I'm still kind of getting used to it. It took a long time. I think the first 4 or 5 days I slept for 14 hours straight and every night. And then I think for the next, the next week or two, it was 10 hours a night. And it really took about 3 weeks to sort of get the grogginess out. And then there was I think just a little bit of a burnout, because there was just so much going on, and there was just so much new responsibility, because, the staff is amazing. We're used to pulling all-nighters and doing many hours. But I think this bubble, we were challenged and tasked with doing a lot of new and protective measures that took a lot out of us. So
are you looking forward to getting back into a bubble?
You know what? I can't wait. I've recharged. I think I've I've spoken to my staff regularly. We've communicated, and I think we're all ready. I think there's something about the staff that works for a pro hockey team. You're always ready, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we've had our. It's been wonderful being home. It's a blessing. But I think we're ready to do what we're trained to do, and that's get back to hockey.
Great to hear, because you only have a few more weeks, I think, and then you'll be back in that bubble, which is great. Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you, Graham. We'll try to figure out how we get in touch with Dr. Mourisset. Thank you, Dr. Mulder. Merci beaucoup à France Margaret. Merci beaucoup, France. Et bonne chance aussi pour les prochaines semaines. On a compris que c'est titanesque que d'essayer d'organiser les séries, et que ça va être titanesque d'organiser une saison aussi très prochainement. Notre période de réchauffement, ça s'achève dans quelques instants, mais on a une nouvelle membre de notre équipe cette année, c'est Chantal Machabée. Je lui ai parlé un peu plus tôt. Yep. Je rejoins tout de suite Chantal Machabée qui met l'épaule à la roue. Cette année, il se joint à notre équipe Hockey 911. Chantal, dont on entendra des entrevues pendant toute la soirée. Bonsoir Chantal, ça va bien?
Allô Grégory, ça va super bien. Je suis très heureuse de me joindre à vous cette année pour Hockey 911. C'est vraiment cool.
Et nous aussi. Alors, tu as eu la chance de t'entretenir, c'est ton métier en plus, avec des joueurs du Canadien. À qui est-ce que tu as parlé?
J'ai parlé à Shea Weber et à Brandon Gallagher. Et ce qui est intéressant là-dedans, Grégory, comme tu le sais, c'est que ce sont deux joueurs qui ont eu à composer avec les blessures tout au long de leur carrière. Même dans le cas de Shea Weber, je me rappelle à un moment donné, on disait que sa carrière était compromise, qu'il avait trop subi de blessures, qu'il ne serait jamais en mesure de revenir aussi fort, alors que la saison dernière, il a connu une de ses meilleures campagnes. Il a été vraiment excellent. Et ça se sent le respect que ces deux joueurs ont pour toute l'équipe médicale du Canadien, Dr. Mulder et compagnie. Qui ont fait un travail phénoménal, là, donc, avec tous les joueurs, mais principalement avec ces deux gars-là. Vous allez entendre leurs propos, là, ils sont très intéressants.
On a d'entendre ça un peu plus tard dans la soirée. Chantal, tu as une longue expérience d'accompagner, pas juste les joueurs du Canadien, mais tous les joueurs de la Ligue nationale. Tu en as vu des blessures, là. Est-ce qu'il y en a une ou deux qu'en les voyant, tu t'es dit « Oh! » et que tu as figé là?
Il y en a plusieurs. Je te dirais, la pire que j'ai jamais vue, c'est Joe Theismann, le corps arrière des Redskins de Washington, avec la fracture ouverte, là, Lawrence Taylor qui l'avait plaqué. Mais plus près de nous, là, parce que là, on parle de 1985, mais plus près de nous, Trent McClary, c'est en 2000, ça s'appelait le Centre Molson à ce moment-là, et Trent McClary qui bloque un tir de Chris Therrien. Le tir va sur sa gorge et ça fait exploser son larynx. Alors là, il n'était plus en mesure de respirer. Graham Reinben qui a sauté sur la patinoire, le Dr. Mulder qui est arrivé, ils lui ont carrément sauvé la vie. Le temps qui s'est écoulé entre la blessure et il était sur la table d'opération à l'hôpital général de Montréal, ça a pris seulement 22 minutes et c'est ce qui a sauvé la vie, en plus de tous les soins qu'on lui a apportés. Ça, c'était incroyable parce que les gens dans les gradins se demandaient qu'est-ce qui se passe, il va-tu s'en sortir? Et je me rappelle au banc, là, les joueurs du Canadien, là, après le match, étaient extrêmement inquiets de l'avenir de McClary. Puis plus près de nous, là, en 2011, c'est bien sûr la fameuse mise en échec de Zdeno Chara à Max Pacioretty. Moi, j'étais en Afghanistan avec des joueurs, d'anciens joueurs du Canadien. J'animais l'antichambre là-bas devant les soldats québécois. Et pourtant, les soldats en ont vu d'autres en termes de blessures. Hein, ça fait partie de leur quotidien. C'était le silence dans l'auditorium. On était très inquiets parce que Max a été environ 3 minutes sans avoir aucune réaction, ne bougeait pas, il avait les yeux fermés. Alors on se disait, ben, est-ce qu'il est paralysé? Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Est-ce que c'est plus grave que ça? Est-ce que sa vie est en danger? Je me rappelle, Mario Tremblay est à côté de moi, il avait les yeux dans l'eau. On était extrêmement inquiets et encore une fois, le personnel médical avait été exceptionnel et Max, bon, s'en est finalement sorti avec une commotion cérébrale puis une fracture à une vertèbre, mais l'angoisse qu'on peut ressentir surtout quand c'est les joueurs du Canadien, parce que bon, moi je travaille avec ces gars-là à tous les jours, je les connais personnellement, donc c'est pas juste l'aspect sportif qui entre en ligne de compte là, et donc les émotions sont là, c'est difficile de voir ça, Grégory, c'est très difficile.
Salut, ben, tu vois, tu es exactement dans notre sujet. Une chance qu'on t'a avec nous cette année. Tu sais que Max Pacioretty, il s'en est remis, mais notre haine de Zdeno Chara ne s'en est pas remise, elle. On l'aime toujours pas, même si on apprécie son très grand talent. Et ton exemple de Theismann m'a fait penser à Terry Francona subitement.
Ah oui.
En tournant le troisième but, puis oh my God. Alors, c'est très, très à propos que tu sois là avec nous. On va t'écouter un peu plus tard avec les joueurs. Merci, Chantal, de te joindre à notre équipe cette année.
Merci à toi, Grégory. Merci à tout le monde. Bye-bye.
Eh bien oui, merci beaucoup, Chantal Maccabé. D'ailleurs, je ne sais pas si on a déjà un petit extrait d'une conversation que Chantal a eue avec Brendan Gallagher, à qui on va parler un peu plus tard. I think we have a short excerpt of a conversation from Chantal with Brendan Gallagher, who is going to be with us a little bit later. Let's take a 30-second look.
What would you say to the hockey fans out there to encourage them to show their support to healthcare workers?
These guys never complain. They never take a day off for the most part. And, work some pretty tough hours and some pretty tough shifts. So I think for us to continue to show that support is so critical for these guys and their morale to hopefully continue the great work that they've been doing.
Eh bien, nous voilà donc de retour pour cette première période. This is the beginning of our first period. Again, we have 3 periods and we have an overtime that is scheduled. We'll be speaking with Kirk Muller and Claude Julien a little bit later on, and Brendan Gallagher a little bit later on. On va parler à Claude Julien, Kirk Muller et Brendan Gallagher un peu plus tard. On aura peut-être une surprise aussi pour notre prolongation. Merci donc à Fiera Capital d'être notre commanditaire, mais aussi d'avoir présenté la période de réchauffement. Merci maintenant au groupe Deschaines qui est associé à cette première période. Now, we've all been wondering, as hockey fans, we've been wondering how it was to be a hockey player and playing in the bubble. Who better to ask than a guy who's got a lot of experience and then a guy who has much less experience, but got some experience this year. We have with us Shea Weber, Captain Shea Weber, and with us as well, the young Nick Suzuki. Good evening to both of you.
How's it going?
Well, it's fine. I'm going to start with you, Shea, because I think we're still working out our connection with Nick. Shea, were you in any way, shape, or form afraid, maybe not afraid, but worried about what it would be like to be experiencing the playoffs in the bubble?
I wouldn't say I was worried. I had some skepticism, I think, of how everything was going to work. I think a lot of guys were kind of unsure. Needless to say, I think they did an unbelievable job, starting obviously with the preparation with the NHL and then through our team, through Graham and our doctors, and making sure that everything was dialed in. I think obviously the results speak for itself, but definitely something that I never imagined doing in in my career. I think that was my 15th year, and something that I'd never thought about or ever even experienced anything like that.
Yeah, we don't know what it's like. I mean, as lay people, as common people, we don't know. But what we figure is that an athlete with your experience, you've got a routine. There's stuff that you do that you know you need to do to be prepared, to be healthy, to be okay. Now, that stuff was all out of whack because of confinement and because of the whole COVID. How did you adjust to that, Shay?
Yeah, definitely different than normal routine. It was almost, hockey players are creatures of habit, and you can talk to Gally about that later on with his superstitions. But I think we all had to make adjustments, and everyone did a good job from top to bottom. And I think the team also made it very easy to get extra treatment, whether it was they brought guys into the bubble after the first couple of weeks that could see guys on top of the work that our guys were doing in its own was great. I mean, everyone that had leave their families, come over from Europe, everyone that was involved in this did an unbelievable job, and it's just kind of a weird situation and something that I don't think any of us knew what to expect going in.
Shay, some of the young players don't have kids yet. They're not married yet. They're young. They just came in, like Nick Suzuki. You, on the other hand, there's also habits that are not athletic, that are just family habits. How did that work out for you, being away from your family?
It's difficult. It's really hard. Obviously, your main goal there is to win hockey games, and that's the biggest thing at that point. But at the end of the day, we're humans too, and talking to your kids every day, and which we're fortunate is that we have a lot of video, FaceTime, all the stuff that we have now. Maybe there wasn't around 20 years ago, so you at least get to see them. But when they're asking if you're coming home tomorrow, the next day, and I mean, your goal is to be in the bubble as long as possible. It's a kind of a push-pull situation that you're dealing with.
But before I speak to Nick Suzuki, I need to ask you, being in the bubble, I asked Graham Reinben before how he felt, because you players were away from your family. The staff was also away from their family. And he said, just a while back, he said, can't wait to get back and start the season. How are you looking at this upcoming season?
Yeah, excited. Definitely looking forward to whenever we getting going. Being on the ice and around the guys is something that, it's one of the best parts of the game for me, and I think a lot of guys. So it is nice being here and home and being involved in that stuff, but at the same time, we're used to playing hockey at this point, and it's a little bit strange still just practicing and not being back. So one of the good things I think about the bubble was just the camaraderie that it brought the guys that much closer together. You're together, you're with each other every day, and it's going to be good to go back and see all the old faces, and obviously we got some new faces too that we got to get acquainted to as well.
I want to come back to that in just a second, because we're getting a lot of questions. This is an interactive event tonight, so we're getting a lot of questions. One of the questions that we got is, we often, think of older athletes, which is not very old, but older athletes as having more difficulty getting prepared, etc. You've been injured before. You've been injured, and yet this season was a great season for you, and the playoffs were great for you as well. So maybe you can tell us if you did something different, but how much the involvement of the medical team is for that, is a part of that success.
Well, I think, obviously that's a huge part. Obviously, dealing with the injury, for me, in my case, it was surgeries, rehab, and obviously the year before, I don't think I got as much of a full summer and time to train and recover as I normally do. It was kind of kick straight on, and then last summer I had just a normal full summer to train. So I didn't really do anything different as far as the off-ice stuff or skating. It was just, I think, more time to actually prepare and it's kind of a similar thing now. Obviously had some more downtime, but it's similar to what a summer would be in training and preparing, and now it's just kind of wait and see when that time's going to be to get back there.
Shay, you're the captain. We've got Nick Suzuki with us. Obviously, everyone is curious to hear you say something about the rookie and how great he did in those series in the playoffs.
I think his play spoke for itself. To be honest, I'm not sure what he did there over the COVID break, but obviously he was stick handling in his basement or playing some extra hockey because he came back and he was playing great. Obviously, scored some really big goals, made some big plays, but he plays on both ends of the ice as well, and that's a side of the game that a lot of young players don't tend to always respect, and he's got that knowledge of the game and the ability to play both ends, and there's so much more improvement and room for growth in his game, even from where he's come in the last few months.
Nick, I guess you heard that. Did you hear that, Nick?
No, I couldn't hear Shea, but
okay,
I can just only hear you.
I'll tell you what he said. He said your play sucked during the playoffs. No, he did not. He said that you were amazing during the playoffs and thought that during that COVID break you probably practiced a lot and had a hockey stick in your hands all the time. How was it for you, Nick? This experience, this unbelievable experience, and your unbelievable play as well in this bubble.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect going into the bubble. There was a lot of talk of what it was going to be like, and once I kind of got into the routine of what everything was going to be, we kind of knew every off day was a certain routine and every game day was a certain routine. So once you kind of get into the groove of that, it's just playing hockey and without the fans, it was a lot different, but I think we did the best we could.
Yeah, and you surprised a lot of fans. We are surprised. We know Shea. We've been following Shea Weber for years and years, even before he was with the Montreal Canadiens, and we know he's had injuries. You've been pretty okay since you've been with the Montreal Canadiens. Have you had awful injuries before in junior and elsewhere?
No, personally, I haven't. Haven't had anything major. Just minor stuff here and there. I've been pretty lucky that way. Hopefully that continues, but yeah, I've been through injuries with some of my friends and teammates, and yeah, it's tough on the mental side, and you got to have a good support staff.
Did you, Nick, in any way change your preparation? Health-wise and physically, because of what happened this year with the COVID?
Not too much. I've been, I guess, more careful, washing my hands more frequently, always using hand sanitizer. But physically, my training hasn't really changed at all. We've been just taking it a bit slower. We've had a lot of time to focus on little things in my training, so I guess it's been a blessing that way.
Am I exaggerating if I say that you are really looking forward to getting back on the ice and into a new bubble and this next upcoming season?
Yeah, it's can't really put words on it. I'm just really excited to be back. I just want to get back on the ice with the guys. I've been itching ever since we lost, so just want to get back together with the guys and prepare for the upcoming season.
I'm getting plenty of questions from our audience tonight. This is an interactive event. I'm going to start with you, Nick, because you brought a lot to the Montreal Canadiens this past season and in the playoffs, obviously, and a lot of stuff happened after the end of the season, after the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. How are you feeling about all these additions to the team, and are you optimistic about what you guys can do this year?
Yeah, it's definitely fun just to see all the moves that we made. I know we lost a few great guys and great players, and but we added a lot of talent and size especially. So it's definitely exciting for a young guy like me. It's kind of the first time in the NHL that I've seen movement around and losing guys. So it's a cool experience, and I'm definitely excited to meet all of them and get going with the team.
It's funny because I'm listening to you, Nick, and just listen to Shea Weber. We all know that Shea Weber is like a mountain, and he's, you can't bother him. He's like super solid. You're a kid, And you seem to be made out of the same material, where nothing unfazes you. Am I right, or are you sometimes super nervous?
I wouldn't say I get very nervous. I've kind of been like the same my whole life. I don't know, just the way I've always been. But I get to learn from Shea every day, and just seeing how he carries himself off the ice, and even especially on the ice, just to watch him in practice and in games all the time.
Shea, I have to ask you, what do you want to say to people listening right now? I could ask you hockey questions for all night, forever, but of just how important a good medical staff, a good therapeutic staff, how important that is to your success as an athlete and everyone as a team.
Obviously, the amount of money and salaries that all these NHL teams put out for the players to produce, and if you don't have a good medical staff, training staff to make sure everyone's taken care of and put in the best situations to succeed, it's all kind of for nothing. So I think it's vital to have a good staff to maintain health and keep guys healthy, and obviously going in the right direction and guiding everybody the right way.
Both of you, Shea, decided to get involved when COVID started, and you did some outreach stuff. I'm pretty sure you don't feel pressure to do that. You think it's really important to outreach to the public.
For sure, yeah. No, there's I don't feel pressure to do anything. I just feel like it's the least that we could do. I could do in our situation is. And especially in our community and the community I'm growing into here is somewhere I want to give back to and be a part of. So it's an easy decision for me, and definitely didn't feel pressured at all.
I have a question for you, Nick, from our audience tonight. Seems you've been practicing, you've been training with your brother. How's that going?
It's been good. We've been training together for a long time, and it's been good to push each other. And he's actually out west at the World Junior Camp right now, so hopefully he has a good camp. And it's always fun training with your brother. We got a good group of players in London that we get to train with, so it's always a lot of fun going in there.
All right, guys, we all want to thank you very much for giving us the time tonight. Thank you very much. We hope both of you will be taking advantage of the next few weeks, because it seems like in a month or so, you guys are going to be going back into another bubble. And we have great expectations after seeing our team in the playoffs this year. We have great expectations for you guys. So all the best to Shea Weber. Thank you. All the best to Nick Suzuki. Thank you. Maybe you want to say a last words to our audience tonight. We'll start with Shea.
Just want to say looking forward to getting back, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully everyone's having a good night and keeping it together through these tough times, and hope to see you all soon. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Shea. Nick, last word to you.
Yeah, just want to say thanks for everyone to put this together. It's a great event, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And to all the fans, I hope to see everyone soon, as safe and as quick as possible. And we miss playing in front of you guys. And I'm really excited for the upcoming season.
Thank you, Nick Suzuki. Thank you, Shea Weber, Captain. Merci beaucoup à Shea Weber et à Nick Suzuki. Profitez des moments qu'il vous reste avant de vous préparer à nouveau pour la prochaine saison. Très fun de les avoir avec nous. Je vous rappelle, vous qui nous regardez, que vous avez la possibilité de soutenir la Fondation de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal en participant à notre encamp silencieux. Il y a plein de beaux prix. Il y a des chandails de joueurs de hockey. Il y a des forfaits de golf. Il y a des forfaits aussi au Centre Bell. Il y a des forfaits qui ont rapport avec du mobilier, si vous voulez refaire votre mobilier chez vous. Just a second to say that you can help us with the Montreal General Hospital Foundation. You can participate in our silent auction. You can do that. There are great prizes, jerseys, autographed hockey sticks, golf events at the Bell Center, because eventually there will be events at the Bell Center. There's plenty of stuff. So please, if you're interested, you can go to our silent auction or simply donate. And again, thank you very much to Shea Weber and Nick Suzuki. On a, pour finir cette première période, un petit bout d'entrevue préparé par Chantal Maccabé. On remercie d'ailleurs RDS pour leur travail de ce côté-là, leur participation, leur générosité. We have a short interview with Chantal Maccabé and a guest, and we'll be back for the second period with Claude Julien and Kirk Muller. On sera de retour avec Kirk Muller et Claude Julien dans quelques instants.
Hello, this is Chantal Maccabé. I'm very happy to interview Shea Weber and Dr. Rajda for Hockey 911, a unique fundraiser for the Cold Life campaign of the Montreal General Hospital Foundation. Dr. Rajda, you're a member of the infection control and prevention team at the McGill University Health Center. Can you explain exactly what your work has been like since COVID?
Sure. Work has changed a lot since COVID has started. The Infection Prevention and Control Department's main job is to protect patients from acquiring infections while they are in hospital, but it's also protect the healthcare workers from acquiring infections while they are at work.
Yeah, how did this pandemic impact the day-to-day work in hospitals?
Things are not functioning quite as quickly as they were before. During the first lockdown, our activities were significantly reduced. Things are much improved right now, but we still need to take the time to do certain steps properly to make sure that everyone's safe.
It must be motivating to see professional hockey players showing their support to medical teams by contributing to important research projects such as the Scuba Mask Project. Can you tell us a little bit about this great initiative?
Oh, the Scuba Mask Project is absolutely wonderful. It's a great collaboration, and it provided a really rapid response to a huge problem in this crisis. So the Scuba Mask Project actually provided the MUHC with a contingency plan. We were able to get our hands on these masks really quickly and begin a super rigorous evaluation. So we checked both the fit of these masks to make sure that there was no air leaks. We made sure that the filters that were attached to the snorkel portion at the top worked well and that they did their job. But even more interestingly, we also because we had them so quickly, we were able to subject them to various cleaning and disinfection methods. And this is actually a key feature of the mask because this makes them reusable, which makes the MUHC, should the crisis really ever come back, completely self-sufficient.
How important do you think philanthropy is in healthcare?
Oh, I mean, it's essential. With the help from our community partners and donors, both from the foundation and from the Hockey League, we're able to do this kind of work and these kind of research projects. We're able to do them in a timely fashion and really provide the comfort for our frontline workers to know that we have a backup plan, that they will be safe, and that we can continue to work for our community to keep everybody safe from COVID. So I think this is a huge thank you to the whole community, to the donors, to the professional hockey players. Really, thank you.
Thank you very much, Shea, for doing this with us today. Why did you get involved with the Montreal General Hospital Foundation and Hockey 911?
I think it's important to get involved in your community, especially with everything that's going on. And obviously the doctors that we deal with do so much for us. I thought it was important to give a little bit of our time and give back in that way.
You have experienced quite a few injuries yourself in your career. What role played the medical team and doctors such as Dr. Mulder in your recovery?
They've always been great. Obviously, like you said, I've dealt with some injuries over my career, and they've been there and always there for good advice and helping along the rehab path, or obviously in making decisions too with what you need to do going forward. And luckily, they've been very helpful for me and been able to keep my career going.
What would you say to hockey fans out there to help them go through this pandemic right now?
Yeah, it's tough. Obviously, it's tough on everybody, and we wish we were playing right now. Obviously, it's kind of weird to be in this situation in the fall not playing hockey, but everybody just got to stick with it, and hopefully there's better days ahead.
Yeah, and what would you say to hockey fans to encourage them to show their support to healthcare workers?
I don't think we give enough credit. I think, like you said, you don't see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that they go through, the stuff that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, and us being able to talk to them and hear stories from them, we hear a little bit about that. So being able to give your support in whatever way you can, whether it's telling someone that they did a great job or giving back in any way, I think it's really important.
C'est le début de notre deuxième période. Merci beaucoup d'être branché avec nous ce soir pour cet événement Hockey 911, un événement de financement, d'information aussi, mais de financement pour la Fondation de l'Hôpital général de Montréal. Je rappelle que l'Hôpital général de Montréal, spécialisé dans les situations traumatiques. On le voit quand il y a des joueurs de hockey qui se blessent, mais ça arrive à des gens aussi à tous les jours. On est bien content d'avoir cet hôpital-là en plein milieu du centre-ville. Thank you for being with us. It's the beginning of the start of our second period. Thank you for supporting us with this Hockey 911 event. This is an event, a fundraising event for the Montreal General Hospital Foundation. Obviously, we specialize in trauma. We've seen traumatic injuries to hockey players, but it does happen to everyone, and it's great to have that type of hospital, that type of service in downtown Montreal. And continue sending your questions. Je vois qu'il y a une question de Jean-Philippe qui me dit qu'il y a une question pour Claude Julien qui va être notre invité dans quelques secondes. Mais tu ne me dis pas c'est quoi ta question. Alors, je ne pourrais pas vraiment bien la poser. Prends le temps de m'écrire qu'est-ce que c'est la question. Please go on with your questions. We'll try to make this as interactive as possible. Nos invités dans cette deuxième période, Kirk Muller, c'est un capitaine du Canadien, assistant à notre directeur, notre Claude Julien national. Claude Julien qui est avec nous aussi. Hey, je commence avec Claude Julien. D'abord, comment ça va, Claude?
Ça va bien, Grégory, merci.
Ça m'est arrivé de rencontrer des anciens coachs du Canadien et de leur demander comment ils se sentaient quand un de leurs joueurs, ce sont comme vos enfants quelque part, je ne dis pas que vous les traitez comme des enfants, mais ce sont comme vos enfants, puis que vous envoyez un étendu sur la patinoire. Et je me rappelle de m'être fait répondre à quel point le cœur arrête quand on voit ça. Là, dans ton cas, c'est pas à propos des joueurs, c'est toi qui a fait que notre cœur a arrêté. Comment tu as vécu ça, en plus dans l'environnement de la bulle?
Écoute, je peux dire que c'était pas quelque chose que tu prévois. Et puis, surtout, quand tu es un ancien athlète, tu es entouré de personnes qui sont en excellente forme physique à tous les jours. Et puis, tout à coup, tu ressens une certaine douleur qui te fait poser des questions. Alors, pour moi, c'était quelque chose qui m'a honnêtement surpris. J'aurais peut-être pas dû l'être parce que, écoute, tu as des gens dans ta famille qui auraient dû te donner des indices et puis c'était justement le cas. Je pense que c'était au milieu de la nuit lorsque je me suis réveillé. J'ai senti une certaine douleur que j'avais d'ailleurs ressentie quelques fois dans les journées auparavant. pour une dizaine de minutes, peut-être, ce qui ressemblait vraiment là, à un brûlement d'estomac. Alors, quand je me suis levé dans les 3 heures, 4 heures du matin, et puis que cette douleur-là n'arrêtait pas, c'est à ce moment-là que j'ai pris les précautions de téléphoner justement à Graham Rinben, notre soigneur, pour lui dire ce qui se passait. Alors, c'était quelque chose qui me donnait, disons, l'indice de faire l'appel parce que je me sentais pas, comme qu'on peut dire, confortable. Puis, je savais que c'était quelque chose un petit peu plus qu'un brûlement d'estomac à ce moment-là.
Claude, on ne se connaît pas du tout, là, mais j'ai l'impression, comme tous les amateurs du Canadien puis tous les gens qui t'aiment, j'ai l'impression que tu n'es pas le genre de gars qui se plaint facilement. Je sais pas, tu me donnes pas l'impression de quelqu'un qui dit « Oh, j'ai un petit bobo ici, il y a cette petite affaire-là. » Est-ce que tu aurais pu hésiter encore puis te dire « Ah, ça va aller mieux demain matin? » Est-ce que t'es ce genre-là?
Absolument, Grégory. Écoute, je veux dire que lorsque Graham a fait les démarches justement pour appeler l'ambulance et puis ils m'ont justement ils m'ont mis un cardiogramme qu'il y avait avec eux sur moi avant de me transporter. Ils m'ont dit qu'ils voyaient un petit quelque chose, mais la décision revenait quand même à moi si je voulais justement continuer puis aller à l'hôpital. Et puis, c'est à ce moment-là que j'ai regardé Graham. Puis, j'ai hésité parce que je savais que aussitôt que je sortais de l'hôtel et puis de la bulle, si tu veux, puis j'allais à l'hôpital, que je ne retournais pas derrière la banc suite. Et puis, c'est à ce là que Graham avait justement rejoint le docteur Mulder. Quand on dit rejoint à 4 heures du matin, là, c'est pas quelque chose d'évident. Surtout, on ne s'attend pas à déranger les docteurs à ces petites heures-là, mais nos médecins sont tellement, je te dis, dévoués à nos causes qui sont toujours disponibles. Alors, ces deux personnes-là m'ont vraiment persuadé d'aller à l'hôpital parce qu'ils sentaient vraiment qu'il y avait quelque chose qui n'était pas tout à fait normal. Alors, c'est eux qui m'ont justement fait décider, ou ils m'ont converti, disons, à accepter cette décision-là. Puis à ce moment-là, je suis allé à l'hôpital, puis je remercie les deux parce que peut-être si je n'avais pas suivi leur conseil, on ne sait jamais ce qui aurait pu arriver.
Totalement. C'est le genre de décision, puis c'est ça qui est important. C'est plus important encore que quand est-ce que tu sors ton gardien en troisième période quand tu tires l'arrière par un but. Je vais revenir parce que j'ai plein de questions pour toi du public, Claude. Kirk Muller, good evening. I know this is not polite, Kirk, but my first question to you is not going to be about you. It's going to be about Claude. How did you feel, Kirk, when you heard, when you saw that this was happening to your boss, and not just your boss, your partner?
Yeah, I mean, number one thing was the concern for Claude. I mean, got a message at probably 6 a.m. from Graham saying that in the middle of the night you had to go rush to the hospital. So, I didn't know too many details at that time. Graham just said, be prepared to take the guys over to the rink, and we'll fill you in later on as to the whereabouts and of how he's doing. So that was the biggest concern for us, and the biggest relief was probably shortly after when we found out that the word got back to us that he was going to be okay. It's just the recovery time, and unfortunately, leaving the bubble, he had to sit out. So that made it easier for us after that, knowing that, okay, now our focus is back to hockey. But scary moment. And again, biggest concern was, Claude's health at the time.
I got a question here that I think is really interesting. You've been a player, you've been a captain, you've been a head coach. You're now still, in a part of a coaching staff. But when you were a player, did you get worried about other players on your team when they got injured, when they were, obviously when they're on the ice and you don't know, but after, do you think about that stuff, or you just you forget about that stuff because you got to focus on hockey?
Well, I think I was fortunate to play with a lot of, close teammates, especially during my span with Montreal Canadiens. So, what you consider yourself a family, and not only with us as players, but as you can see today, from Nick and Shay talking and Claude, is that this is a real family that we have here that expands into the medical field with the doctors and the trainers and everybody. So when you spend as much time as we do collectively, day in and day out, we see the players and the staff more than probably our families for 9 months. So you bond, you gel, you do anything for the players that you play with. So, when you go into Boston, you go into these places in those days, and it's like a war, and unfortunate things happen. There's been some scary situations with players, in vulnerable situations and getting hurt that you do feel for it. But we've seen some ugly things over the years, but again, fortunately, we got the great medical staff and trainers that we feel confident that they're in good hands, and that makes that you can't imagine the value of that, knowing that not only yourself and your teammates are in good hands like that.
I'll get back to you, Kirk. Claude, Kirk vient de nous dire à quel point ils passaient tellement de temps ensemble que c'est une famille. Bon, puis comme amateur de hockey, on s'en doute, là, on voit bien qu'il y a de la camaraderie, de l'affection, puis il y a aussi des fois des chicanes, puis ça, ben c'est ça quand on est une famille. Mais Claude, toi, tu es obligé de laisser ton équipe, puis pas genre quatrième match de la saison, là, en pleine série éliminatoire. Qu'est-ce que ça t'a fait psychologiquement? On parle pas là, de ton cœur, on parle pas de ton corps. Qu'est-ce que ça t'a fait psychologiquement de voir dire, eux autres, ils continuent, et sans moi, il faut que je les laisse?
Ben, écoute, Grégory, souvent, on entend les joueurs qui sont blessés, justement, parler du fait qu'ils se sentent tellement mal parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas aider l'équipe. Et puis, comme tu viens de mentionner, on parle des séries éliminatoires, puis jusqu'à un certain point, je me suis senti de la même façon parce que tu veux être là pour justement aider ton équipe. Tu veux faire partie de ce groupe-là avec qui tu as passé beaucoup de temps. Alors, c'est sûr qu'à un moment donné, psychologiquement, c'était difficile. Écoute, j'ai regardé les matchs à la télévision, puis surtout le premier match que j'ai manqué, ils ont gagné, puis ils ont tellement bien joué, puis c'était une victoire convaincante. J'étais vraiment content pour l'équipe. Mais c'est sûr que la série avance, tu veux toujours revenir. Puis je sais dans mon cas que si on avait passé au travers de Philadelphie, j'étais prêt à revenir derrière le banc. Écoute, aujourd'hui, on peut toujours dire que le temps de surplus que j'ai maintenant, c'est à mon avantage. Mais j'avais eu le OK des médecins de revenir. Puis j'avais tellement hâte de retourner parce que tu veux faire partie de ton groupe avec qui tu as connu des bons moments, avec le même groupe que tu as souffert à certains moments durant la saison. Comme Kirk a dit, on est une famille, puis on a des hauts et des bas, mais en bout de ligne, on veut toujours être ensemble.
Claude, j'ai une vraiment bonne question je pense que c'est Geneviève Paquet tout à l'heure qui a posé une vraiment bonne question, puisque tu viens de dire à quel point ça t'a arraché le cœur de ne pas pouvoir continuer d'être, et j'essaie pas de faire des jeux de mots avec cœur, là. Puis la question qu'a posée Geneviève, c'est, tu es peut-être vraiment bien placé pour répondre à ça, toi qui coaches des gens plus jeunes que toi depuis des années. Qu'est-ce que tu dirais aux jeunes qui trippent hockey, qui adorent le hockey et qui, là, à cause de la pandémie, peuvent pas jouer en ce moment? Tu leur dirais de se concentrer sur quoi pour se consoler de l'absence de hockey dans leur vie?
Bien, écoute, on passe au travers d'un vraiment bon test présentement là, avec le COVID. Puis c'est sûr que ça touche tout le monde d'une façon ou d'une autre. Mais si tu prends le temps de regarder la situation, il y a quand même des choses positives dans tout ça. Puis on entend souvent les gens parler on a pu profiter de se passer plus de temps en famille. On a pu, on regarde à quel point dans le passé où ce que la vie nous à 100 000 à l'heure, puis souvent on avait de la difficulté même à souper ensemble. Alors, il y a des choses positives qui se passent. Mais ce qu'on peut voir présentement, je sais qu'on passe encore à une autre période quand même assez creuse, mais je pense qu'on commence à voir la lumière au bout du tunnel. Là, on parle des vaccins qui semblent être près, disons, de quelques mois. On l'espère, puis ces choses-là. Alors, on a encore des choses positives qui s'en viennent devant nous. Alors, c'est d'essayer de rester positif, de trouver les choses qui sont positives, puis de profiter de ces occasions-là, parce que très bientôt, on a peut-être la chance de retourner à ce qui était ce qu'on appelait une vie normale. Puis cette vie normale-là était à 100 000 à l'heure. Puis où on aimait peut-être certaines choses, il y a d'autres choses qui ont été négligées. Puis ces choses-là qui ont été négligées, on a pu en profiter durant cette période de COVID pour justement se reprendre, disons.
Je ne sais pas si tu as toujours été aussi sage, Claude, mais en tout cas, depuis ta peur cardiaque, ça me semble très sage. N'empêche que c'est pas facile de dire à l'équipe. Moi, j'ai un neveu là, qui est très, très bon au hockey. Là. Il a 9 ans. Il trouve le temps long. Là. Il aime bien ses parents, tout ça, mais il trouve le temps long. Kirk, I have a question from Dean for you, which is, I think, really interesting. And I'll get back to the future because you guys opened the door in the future. Dean wants to know, with COVID, we've been watching a lot of old games, including the Stanley Cup playoffs of '93 and stuff. Do you and your former teammates, do you watch that stuff? Or if you don't watch it because you're busy, do you think about that stuff? Do you think about those incredible runs, about winning, about teams, do you?
Well, first of all, it's all about the present players today, and they really don't want to watch how slow we were back then and that. So I don't really share those moments. In fact, I try to hide those videos, but it actually was a lot of fun over the break, as far as obviously this is an unfortunate time and it's a very serious time. But I was back here in Kingston, and I was with my daughters and their husbands and fiance, and it was interesting that we sat down. It's probably the first time I've watched the '93 finals since it happened. So, ironically, I sat and watched with my daughters, who really have not seen me probably play since the end of my career in Dallas. So, we actually got a good chuckle of we sat around during the games against LA in the finals, and one of my daughters is married to Brad Malone, who's actually still active right now with the Edmonton Oilers organization. So he got a kick out of the games in the '90s versus today, and my daughters had a good chance to watch us. They've heard about me talking about the Mike Keens and Guy Carbonells and Lyle lines and that Patrick Waugh, and so they know these names and everything. But it was fun for them to actually sit and watch it, and it was the first time we've ever done it. So it was enjoyable for us, actually.
Funny because a lot of former players say how slow the game seemed back then compared to what it is today. But you guys were still heavy people, skating hard and sometimes getting hurt. What's your worst injury ever, Kirk?
Well, actually, Dr. Mulder was involved with it. Ironically, the first shift of the first game in '93, a real clean hit by Mike Ricci hit me, tore my collarbone, the cartilage off my collarbone. And truthfully, if it wasn't for Dr. Mulder and the little bit of care that he gave me through those next 4 rounds, I probably wouldn't have been a participant in those games. So I owe Doc. The ring that I got on my finger, I owe a lot of thanks to him, because he kept me in the lineup. I was fortunate not to miss a game, but I couldn't believe it happened the first game of the first shift against Quebec Nordiques. And but it was the commitment from the guys and the players at that time, and how they worked with the staff and with the doctors, and how it's amazing in the playoffs what players go through to try to win the Stanley Cup, and you can't do it without guys like Doc and Dr. Deckelbaum and our whole staff and the trainers. People would be amazed at how busy they are, and I would say that injury was probably the one that hurt the most, because we played every second day and you never had a chance to recover.
But you won in the end. That's the important part.
Yeah, but it hurts these days with arthritis, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Claude, tu as ouvert la porte quand je t'ai posé la question sur comment encourager les jeunes qui s'ennuient du hockey, et tu as dit, hey, Pensez aux choses que vous n'aviez pas, le temps que vous n'aviez pas avec les amis, etc. Pensez au futur. Tu as dit ça, le futur. Et donc, évidemment, après ça, j'ai une ribambelle de questions sur le futur. Il va y avoir une prochaine saison, Claude. Tu vas avoir des joueurs qui ont plus d'expérience qu'ils en avaient auparavant. Tu vas aussi avoir des nouveaux joueurs qui s'ajoutent. C'est bien qu'on ne peut pas te demander quel genre d'optimisme t'habite au moment de se préparer pour la prochaine saison.
Oui, je te dirais, écoute, on a passé des temps durs, on est conscient de ça avec les jeunes qui se sont ajoutés, puis le manque d'expérience, etc. Mais je pense que Marc a fait un excellent travail au courant de la saison morte là, qui vient d'arriver pour justement aller justement remplir les trous, les besoins qu'on avait. Et puis, moi, j'ai vraiment hâte de retourner et de recommencer parce qu'on va avoir une équipe vraiment compétitive cette année. Puis, quand je dis compétitive, c'est que on parle de non seulement espérer faire les séries, mais de faire partie des séries. On est confiant de faire ça. Puis, c'est sûr qu'une fois que tu rentres dans les séries, là, tu commences à penser à la Coupe Stanley. Puis, j'ai toujours été un entraîneur, peu importe avec qui j'étais, où on ne saute pas les étapes. Puis pour l'instant, je te dirais que l'équipe qu'on a sous la main, là, 2 bons gardiens, je pense qu'on s'est vraiment renforcé à la défense. On est gros, on est fort de ce côté-là. On s'est grossi aussi à l'avant, mais aussi aller chercher les gars qui sont capables de marquer des buts, les Toffoli, les Anderson de ce monde. Ces ajouts-là avec les jeunes qu'on va espérer continuer à voir grandir, les Suzuki de ce monde, Kotkaniemi, même Evans qui a bien fini aussi. Alors, tu sais, on a des moments très, très encourageants, puis j'ai hâte de tourner sur la patinoire, justement, démontrer à nos partisans le genre d'équipe qu'on est.
Claude, je ne veux pas te mettre dans le trouble, mais je veux quand même te poser une question. Avec l'équipe que tu as en ce moment, là, c'est qui le joueur qui a le plus d'endurance à la douleur, qui résiste le mieux à la douleur? Je vais poser la même question à Kirk dans une seconde.
Ben, je vais te le dire tout de suite. Tu as parlé tantôt, là, puis c'est notre capitaine chez Weber. C'est un joueur que moi, je vois encore de la vieille école. Faut que tu prennes un lasso, puis il faut que tu l'attaches à un poteau pour l'empêcher de jouer parce qu'il va jouer au travers de n'importe quoi. Puis il est vraiment, vraiment, il a de l'endurance incroyable.
Kirk, I need to ask the same question. I just asked Claude, who's the toughest guy, endurance-wise and pain-wise on your team? He just said Shea Weber. Is that the same answer?
Yeah, I mean, look at the minutes that he plays. Look at the players that he has to be asked to play against every night. That's quite a feat to play up players on other teams game in and game out and play a physical brand of hockey that he brings. So the consistency over 82 games, what he is he's been capable of doing, and then take that like this year, he played exceptionally well in that bubble in the playoffs in Toronto. So I think he's showing the real true Hab fans, what kind of leader he is, and I think that's what's fun is to see, how he's leading this team right now and how he did such a great job in Toronto.
Kirk, is it more fun to coach? Because you've obviously got coaching in you. Is it more fun to coach and get players to play better than that they thought they could play, or to be the player who's encouraged to play better than he thought he could play?
Well, as a player, you really obviously it's a team game, but you spend so much of your energy focused on getting yourself prepared to play for that night and to bring your A game, hopefully on a consistent basis. As a coach, it's more of a challenge of working with more personalities and different personalities and trying to really communicate with them so that you get the most out of all of them. But again, everyone's different. So you got to really, really get to know the guys so that you understand them, which guys you can push, which guys you can't. So it's, you do your work before the game almost, and then it's up to them where, as a player, it's your performances a lot of times is during the game. So it's interesting. It's a lot easier on the body the next day as a coach, but but mentally, you bring it home more than you do as a player.
It's hard. I'm sure it is. Claude, on n'a pas eu la chance d'avoir toi et Kirk Muller en même temps. Tantôt, Claude, tu nous as dit à quel point, quand tu as dû quitter l'équipe, à quel point tu étais fier quand tu as vu tes joueurs l'emporter. Tu as aussi un assistant coach là, qui était là. À quel point est-ce que tu étais fier du travail qu'il a fait pendant ton absence?
Écoute, le match n'était pas encore terminé. Là. Je me suis assuré de lui envoyer un texte pour le féliciter puis le dire au coaching staff au complet comment il avait fait un bon travail pour préparer l'équipe. Puis c'est sûr que ça fait plusieurs années qu'on travaille quand même ensemble. Là. On sait comment qu'on veut que l'équipe joue, etc. Alors moi, j'étais pas inquiet de mon groupe d'entraîneurs. Je savais qu'il était pour avoir un bon contrôle sur la situation. C'était vraiment encourageant de voir comment est-ce que l'équipe a bien répondu à nos entraîneurs, et surtout à Kirk, qui était l'entraîneur-chef. Là. Fait un bon travail, puis encore là, avec l'expérience qu'il a aussi comme entraîneur-chef dans la Ligue nationale quand il était en Caroline, ça s'est démontré beaucoup là, durant les séries qu'il avait une bonne expérience.
Finalement, ça a été une occasion pour vous de montrer un paquet d'émotions, là. De l'émotion paternelle, de l'émotion fraternelle. Tout ça, là, ça aurait pas pu... On aurait pu organiser ça, Claude. Organiser que tu as un malaise, juste pour faire sortir toute cette émotion-là. Ça fait un excellent... ça aurait fait une excellente série. Claude, Julien, Kirk Muller, thank you very much for spending time with us. I'm not asking you... One of the many questions that I got is what you guys think of the new goalie tandem. Si vous avez quelque chose à me dire, Claude, si tu veux dire un mot rapide là-dessus, ça va faire plaisir à plein de gens.
Écoute, c'est ce gardien-là qu'on vient d'ajouter à notre groupe, Allen, là, un très bon gardien, un gardien qui était un numéro 1 à un moment donné à Saint-Louis. Je pense qu'honnêtement, là, on a probablement le meilleur duo de la Ligue nationale présentement. C'est à ce point-là qu'on est confiant.
Merci, Claude. Kirk, Jonathan Finkel wanted to get your opinion as well, Kirk, on you guys' new goalie tandem.
Yeah, well, I was with Jake in St. Louis before I came back to Montreal, so I know him well. I seen him as a number one goalie when I was there. This guy can win hockey games. He's a great... well-liked with his teammates. He works hard. It's going to be great to work with him again. And the combination with him and Carey, certainly is. I know they're going to work well together. That's a given. And I think they're going to both give us an opportunity to win hockey games when depending on who's in nets.
Kirk Muller, thank you very, very much. We're going to be speaking with another number 11. It seems that the number 11s in Montreal are gutsy and they, captain stuff in them, which is great. So we'll speak to Gallagher a little bit later on. Thank you, Kirk Muller. Claude Julien, merci beaucoup de nous avoir parlé, de nous avoir accordé ce temps. Claude, je pense que tout le monde te dit la même chose. On a hâte de te revoir derrière le banc. On espère aussi que tu profites de tous ces moments-là pour te remettre en forme. Merci, Claude Julien. Thank you, Claude. Thank you, Kirk. C'est comme ça que se termine notre deuxième période. On va revenir avec Brendan Gallagher en troisième période. Mais avant, une autre petite entrevue de Chantal Machabée. We got Chantal Machabée with another conversation of hers before we get to the third period with Brendan Gallagher.
Bonjour, ici Chantal Machabée. Je suis très heureuse de m'entretenir avec le Dr Thierry Pouillot dans le cadre de Hockey 911, un événement bénéfice unique pour la grande campagne Code Vie de la Fondation de l'Hôpital général de Montréal en soutien aux soins vitaux. D'abord, Dr Pouillot, merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté notre invitation. Ce que j'aimerais savoir d'abord, c'est pourriez-vous nous décrire un peu votre rôle au sein de l'équipe médicale de l'Hôpital général de Montréal et auprès des joueurs du Canadien de Montréal?
Ben oui, à l'hôpital ici, je porte plusieurs chapeaux. Je travaille, dans le fond, dans l'équipe de médecine sportive, puis on donne des soins aux jeunes athlètes collégiales et universitaires. Puis je fais aussi partie de la clinique de la préservation de la hanche, parce qu'on essaie de retarder un peu le début de l'arthrose dans les jeunes athlètes, les jeunes adultes aussi. Au niveau du Canadien de Montréal, mon implication est vraiment comme dans l'équipe médicale, comme un médecin du sport. Dans le fond, quand les joueurs ont des blessures sportives au niveau du système musculo-squelettique, c'est moi qui interviens. On parle des choses simples comme les entorses à la cheville jusqu'à des choses plus compliquées comme les déchirures de ligaments ou bien les déchirures au labrum à la hanche ou les dislocations de l'épaule. Puis quand les joueurs ont besoin d'une intervention chirurgicale, ben c'est moi qui les opère.
Avez-vous justement un exemple de cas de blessure à un joueur là, que vous auriez traité récemment?
Ben oui, l'exemple qui vient à la tête vite, c'est Alex Belzile. Lui, c'est un joueur qui s'est blessé la dernière saison. Puis c'était un moment de la saison où il allait être bientôt appelé par le grand club un peu pour venir prêter main forte. Malheureusement, j'ai dû lui donner un peu la mauvaise nouvelle que, il allait rater le reste de la saison. Puis deux aussi, c'est qu'il a besoin d'une chirurgie. Puis vraiment, c'est difficile c'est quelque chose qui est difficile dans mon métier, un peu leur donner les mauvaises nouvelles. Par contre, j'ai l'opportunité de leur donner aussi une solution, puis garder l'espoir en vie. Puis dans le cas d'Alex, c'est exactement ça qu'on a fait. Il y a eu sa chirurgie, puis on y ajoute la pause de la COVID. Puis il a fait vraiment beaucoup de travail. C'est un gars qui est très discipliné, qui est très motivé puis sérieux. Puis il a réussi à se remettre en forme, puis être prêt à temps pour être établi pour aider l'équipe dans les séries éliminatoires. Alors, il y a un chapeau à lui, il a fait beaucoup de travail. Bien, ça fait plaisir, en tant que docteur, d'avoir participé à son succès personnel et aussi au succès de l'équipe.
Ça doit être très motivant pour vous de voir qu'il y a plusieurs joueurs du Canadien de Montréal qui s'impliquent dans la fondation de l'hôpital. Qu'est-ce que vous pourriez dire au public pour les convaincre de contribuer eux aussi?
Bien, disons, c'est extrêmement motivant. Je dirais que la fondation, dans le fond, c'est quelque chose, c'est comme un peu le poumon de l'hôpital général de Montréal. Dans le fond, c'est un atout qu'on a, puis il faut continuer à alimenter. Puis c'est vraiment inspirant de voir les joueurs contribuer comme ça. Puis, qu'est-ce que ça donne? Ça nous permet d'avoir des services médicaux qui ne seraient pas toujours offerts. Ça nous permet de financer aussi l'achat d'équipements spécifiques. Puis tout ça, c'est pour avoir des services qui sont disponibles aux gens de la communauté. Puis, dans le fond, c'est quelque chose qui nous permet à l'hôpital général de nous mettre dans une classe à part un peu dans le traitement de nos patients.
Dr Poyo, merci infiniment de votre temps.
Merci beaucoup.
Nous sommes de retour et on est prêt pour notre troisième période. Dans cette troisième période, on va essayer de rejoindre Brendan Gallagher et de lui parler dans les prochains instants. Moi, je prends un instant aussi quand même pour vous dire que vous pouvez soutenir la Fondation de l'Hôpital général de Montréal en participant à notre entrée en station. Il y a plein de choses. J'ai vu qu'il y a des gants de Nick Suzuki, il y a des chandails, il y a un chandail de Brendan Gallagher. Faites monter les enchères. C'est une occasion qu'en général, on a en circuit fermé là, qui est ouverte à tous les gens qui sont branchés avec nous ce soir. Vous pouvez aussi faire un don. Before I move on and speak to Brendan Gallagher, just want to say that you can support the Montreal General Hospital's Foundation, our event tonight, Hockey 911, and our Code Life campaign. Very, very important to sustain to help our foundation and keep the the trauma services that are at the Montreal General Hospital. I did mention just before we went away at the end of the second period that so we had Kirk Muller, former number 11 with the Montreal Canadiens, and Gallagher, who we'll be speaking to in a second, also number 11. And many of you have mentioned other former players. You are right. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont parlé d'autres joueurs qui ont porté le numéro 11 qui étaient courageux. Saku Koivu, évidemment, c'est un exemple qui nous vient à l'esprit. Il y a Ryan Walter qui a porté le numéro 11, si ma mémoire est bonne. Puis il y a Yvon Lambert qui est en ligne avec nous. Alors c'est très drôle. Il y a plein de gens qui font comme « Hein? Le vrai Yvon Lambert? » Ben oui, le vrai Yvon Lambert est en ligne avec nous. Moi, j'ai une grande fierté à propos de Yvon Lambert parce que je suis né dans le même village et que je l'ai regardé jouer quand j'étais jeune. Puis je me disais « Wow! » Dans notre village à Saint-Germain de Grantham, à côté de Drummondville, il y avait un joueur avec plein de bagues de la Coupe Stanley. Just mentioning in French that we have a former number 11 also connected with us tonight on our broadcast, which is Yvon Lambert. So I hope you're well, Yvon Lambert. On espère que tu es en grande forme. Okay, let me find Brendan Gallagher and have a conversation with Brendan. Can you hear me, Brendan?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. We're all very anxious to speak to you because we want to know how the bubble experiment was this year in those Stanley Cup playoffs, but especially for a guy who's as intense as you and a guy who got hurt in that bubble. How was it?
Yeah, it was different. It was a strange experience starting with, just playing in front of no fans. You kind of mentioned it. I'm a guy that really, you feed off the fans. Lucky enough to play in Montreal at the Bell Center where, it's easy to have energy every single night. So it was just different. You had to find different ways to create energy and find that. And then, obviously I was dealing with some injuries pretty much right from the get-go there that, you got to get to the hospital. You got to get these X-rays, these MRIs done. And in order to do that in the COVID world, they had to dress me up in the full gear. I had the full bubble protection going out of there. They made sure I wasn't coming in contact with anyone. So it was just a unique experience, something I don't think I'm going to be going through again. But it was just different for all of us.
I have a great question here. This is an interactive event, so I'm getting great questions from our audience and from hockey fans tonight. Karine once sent a question. She said, after the Niskanen hit, for the first time in your career, maybe not the first time, but very, very seldom do we see you stay down when you get hit. But you did stay down. What was going through your mind when that hit occurred?
Not much. I was trying to compose myself, I guess. I think I was actually pretty fortunate the way it landed. I was kind of sitting upright, so, blood wasn't able to, leave the important areas of the body too much. So I was able to kind of stay to. Then I kind of realized, something was wrong with my teeth. But other than that, not too much went through my mind. Would have liked a penalty. I didn't realize I didn't get it. Made sure the referee was aware that I was upset, and then a few words with the bench on your way by, and then you're just kind of on with the game. Brendan,
you're tough. You're really you're tough. Everyone knows it. Everyone sees it. Every fan sees it. And you're not that big. So have you always been this courageous and tough?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I wasn't doing it, even at a young age, I just wasn't good enough to have success. It was just the only way I have to play. I have to play hard, and it's a physical game. Everyone's kind of prepared for that. The engagement that you're going to get every single shift and every single night. And for me, it kind of helps my game. You do it for so long. I've done it at the National Hockey League for 8 years, but there's, you can go back to Adam, Pee Wee, Bantam age. I was still playing the same way because I really had to. I just wasn't gifted in other ways. So I just, I had no other choice than to do it. And then it comes to a certain point where it just becomes part of who you are. And that's what I need to do. And you just, everyone every single night has to do their job, and that's just part of it.
But is it the body or is it your mind? Is it your mind that, is so focused that you will not let an injury stop you?
Well, there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. A lot of times you're hurt and you're able to kind of battle through it, and everyone has a little bit of a different pain threshold and what you can do, and you're not going to put yourself on the ice if you can't help the team. And then there's being injured where you're not allowed to play or you're not able to play. And I've dealt with that too, where you're out of the lineup. But so much of it is just putting in the work in the summer, so your body can handle a full 82-game season, and then going into playoffs, you can take and handle that beating. And then a lot of it is, the work that the trainers and the doctors put in the off days. Guys would be surprised at what our bodies are like the day before games, but they get us ready to go, and you feel as close as possible to 100% where you're able to do your job. So that relationship is definitely pretty important.
In some movies, sometimes when you have a superhero or a very, very athletic police officer or something, and you see them in that scene where they get to the doctor's office, and then the doctor looks at them, a Batman type of movie, and they say, "What the hell are you doing? You've got injuries here and here, and so that's a classic scene in a movie." Now, what do doctors think when they see you? I know the doctors know exactly what you do, but what, you got hurt in you got broken fingers again? You've got a broken hand again? What does the medical team say when you come up with some other injury?
Well, with the hand, they tell me to get out of the damn way. That Pricey gets paid a lot of money to stop that, and he's pretty good at it. So, the first one, probably should have let him save it. But it's just part of the game. You're gonna get bumps and bruises along the way. A lot of it is, no reaction. They're pretty used to it by now. You come in there with, aches and bruises. But like I said, there's a difference between, when you can't play. When you're not going to be able to get ready to play the game. But if you're ready to play, it's important for us to kind of block all that stuff out. And come puck drop, it's not in your mind. So you let them do their job. You see them as much as possible leading up to the games. They get you ready, and then once the puck drops, it doesn't matter how you're feeling. You put on that sweater, and there's a certain expectation playing for the Montreal Canadiens that you're expected to do the job.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not looking for secrets, but at the same time, there are other players, Brendan, who seem like they're not as dedicated as what you just described. There are other players. So I'm not asking for names. But if you've ever played with a player who's, not as tough and complains, does it piss you off?
I mean, it's hard to say because everyone has a different threshold, and you just have to trust them. They're your teammates, so you trust them. If they can't go, they can't go, and you go with what you have. And obviously, you'd always like to have these guys in the lineup. I always, whenever I'm feeling a certain a way, I always think back to my first couple of years in Montreal. I remember watching Georgie walk around the house, and he couldn't move. He dealt with a lot more than I've seen any other player go through, and I always saw him. He did what he had to do, and he always found a way to play. So, he was kind of the example. I had other guys. I remember Gianta. I pretty much ripped his bicep off. Played a game. It's different guys have different things, and a lot of time people don't hear about them. But in the locker room, I think you get a lot of respect from your teammates when you're able to battle through those things. And I've certainly had a lot of teammates, do it for me. So you just try and do it for them when you get the opportunity. Totally.
I'm getting great questions from one of our participants tonight, Fotini Bizoglas, who's got a bunch of really good questions. One of which is, what's your worst injury? I can't imagine that you've had worse injuries than what we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years with the hand and the face. Have you had worse injuries?
I've had a lot, but no. Honestly, the hand was the first time it happened. I never really dealt with any major surgeries. I just assumed, I'd broken bones before. I looked down at my finger. It obviously looked pretty gross, as everyone saw, but I just kind of assumed, it was a normal break. Surgery never really crossed my mind. I was pretty naive. Found out shortly after. So that feeling of going into surgery, obviously they rushed you right in, and they did an awesome job with that. I'll never really forget that feeling because it was new to me. There definitely is a little fear how you're going to handle it and the whole situation. It was my first time going under the knife. The second time it happened, I knew exactly what it was, and it was more just anger because I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I didn't need a doctor to diagnose me that time. But you kind of deal with these injuries, and you get used to them as you go along.
And what about the face? Is the mustache to cover something after that injury, or is it just Movember?
unfortunately, I don't think it's thick enough to cover up anything. So, the face is what it is. I'm kind of amazed I made it as far as I did with my teeth being intact. Without one now, a few of them are dying. I might lose a couple more on the way, but I made it 28 years with them playing the way I do. So, I consider myself pretty lucky.
I'm going to ask a medical question here. Hand, if it's not 100%, how's it performing right now?
It's good. I tell the trainers this all the time. When it snows, I kind of feel it coming, and especially being back here in Vancouver where it rains. I mean, right now it pretty much rains every second day. It just aches. So in the mornings it's tough. You lay in bed and you just kind of got to get going a little bit more, which you never would think you have to do with a hand. But you warm it up. Something else, you get it going, and it can work.
Let me put my question another way. I teach. I give virtual piano classes. You think you could play the piano with those hands?
Oh, no chance. There's certain things. You'll never get your full range. It's obviously doesn't look like it did before, but I can hold a stick, and that's
important.
Pretty much all
okay, how about
I can get through that?
How about the jaw? From let's say 0 being, it's obviously not 0, but 10 being like perfect.
It doesn't ache like the hand. The hand aches more than the jaw. But there are certain days where I'll feel it a little bit. It's usually in the mornings. I don't know why, but later on in the day, everything's usually okay. But in the mornings when you wake up, you'll get some aches and pains, and it's strange because it's kind of right in the face. But as the day goes on, it gets better.
I have a cheeky question that was inspired by another question that I just saw here, but it's a cheeky question, so you don't have to answer. But I'm going to ask it. What is scarier, or what got you more scared? Standing in front of the goal when Shea Weber's, slap shots, or that those last few days negotiating that contract? Because you scared us, you guys, all of you scared us for a minute there, for a day. It felt like it wasn't going to happen. So what's scarier?
Well, it's different. Because obviously the Weber slap shot, I don't see it. So it's over with pretty quick. The negotiations, it felt like it was maybe 2 or 3 days for everyone else. For me, it was a very long time. These talks were going on for a while, and you just have to ask yourself questions that you don't really want to answer, and that was probably the hardest part for me. As you're going through these decisions, and these are life decisions, and for me, I've known one place, and it was being a Montreal Canadian, and as these talks go on, you have to ask yourself these questions. Are you okay with being in a different city, playing for another team, putting on another jersey? And they're really not fun questions to deal with, because when you make these decisions, you're bringing those into play, which was never something I wanted. So, it was my first time really going through a negotiation, and obviously both sides had a job to do, and I can't. Obviously I can't thank Jeff and Berge enough for the work they did, and my agents as well. They worked so hard at it, and I think both sides had, both my interest and the Montreal Canadiens' interest in mind, and they were able to come to a deal, which I couldn't be happier about. So it was more relief than anything. I was just happy to get it done.
Yeah, I think if it had not happened, Dr. Mulder might have been called in, but I think Marc Bergevin would have been the one in trouble. You're 28 now. You're a veteran. You got a bunch of new players coming in. Some of them really young, some of them not so young, but new to the team. What are you going to tell them to get this team even to a better place than it was during the last playoffs?
Well, we got a tough challenge because obviously we're not going to have a lot of time to get going, and we do have new faces. And I know more than anything, it takes time with these things. You have players take some time to feel comfortable and to find out their role and to really feel like themselves. So we're gonna have to do a good job through training camp and really come to camp ready to work, because we're not going to have time to wait around here. You're obviously looking at most likely a shortened season. So we have expectations for ourselves as individuals, but most importantly, we have expectations as a team to be competing this year and to be in the mix for the ultimate prize at the end of the year. And I think when you talk about those things as a group, it makes us excited. But we definitely have a lot of work to do to integrate the new faces, integrate the new pieces, and for everyone to feel comfortable in their role.
Many people say, Brendan, that you train really well, that you're super disciplined and so super rigorous about taking care of your body. You told us something about that before. We've got a bunch of young kids who cannot play right now, and I'm not saying that every kid is as intense as you are, but a lot of kids are really intense about playing hockey and can't right now. It's not a question of being injured. It's just a question of the pandemic. What would you tell kids right now who can't play and love the game?
I'm pretty lucky that it looks like we're gonna be able to play, but I can't imagine being in their situation as a young kid. The best memories you make are with your friends. It's not so much the game itself; it's being at the rink, being in the locker room, riding the buses, the hotels, playing mini sticks in the hallway. Those are the things you remember, and I'm still friends with all my group of friends back home are teammates of mine from minor hockey, and these are the things we still talk about today. All you can say is that eventually, that everyone's going to take care of this. I think the people in charge have to. There's no other option. For us, it's just important to do our part until we're able to, and it sacrifices. It really does suck. It's not something that anyone deserves to be going through, especially for young kids right now that are missing out on these opportunities. But hopefully once we're able to get back to normal again, they're able to have these experiences that I was so fond about growing up.
You just talked about friends back home. So I suppose you must have a bunch of friends back home. But in the rest of the National Hockey League, do you actually have a friend? Because sure doesn't look that way when the Montreal Canadiens are playing another team.
Believe it or not, I got a couple buddies on other teams, but most of the time those are the guys you go at it with.
You mean like Brad Marchand?
Yeah, well, we're not as close as we were, I guess, at the World Championships. But I got a lot of respect for him, obviously. But you look at the Philadelphia Flyers series. Tommy was a guy that we played with, a really good friend of mine, a guy that I saw before the series. Around the bubble, you talk to him, but then once the series started, you don't talk. You're intense. You chirp back and forth on the bench, and you're both competing for one thing. And then I remember, you're just battling and competing. And I remember, after the series ended, he was one of the first people that texted me. Obviously talking about the series and making sure that I was okay after surgery, and that's kind of the relationship you have. You just forget about your friendship when you're on the ice. You deal with it so many times. I think everyone deals with friends being on other teams. It doesn't matter. They're really not your friends for the 3-4 hours you're playing the game, and then afterwards you can kind of get back to a normal relationship, and everyone's pretty good about forgetting what just happened on the ice.
I got a really good question from, this is an interactive event again. I got a really good question from Hope Muir, who said, who asks, how excited are you to see smaller set players like Cole Caulfield make it on the team?
I'm excited to have really good players like Cole Caulfield. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. Being big is great. Being small is great. If you're not able to get the job done on the ice, and for us smaller players, obviously the challenge is, winning your battles. But if you're able to make up for that and win your battles, size is really a non-factor. And, for the bigger players, it's usually the quickness issue. If you're able to move around, you make that a non-factor. So it's, you have to do it all in the National Hockey League, and just getting the chance to see him a little bit. I've seen him play a couple games. You just know how good he's going to be. A real talented player, and he's a really good kid, which I think is the most important thing. And when you get these good character kids coming into your team, I think that makes older players excited because they're going to give you a chance to win.
By the way, Cole Caulfield got hit pretty hard this week and was back on the ice for the next game, which ties me into the question from Bailey Larouche, who says, we've mentioned about your injury, your jaw and your hand, but we haven't talked about your concussion. How are you feeling? Is everything back to normal?
Everything's back to normal. I had dealt with a couple concussions before, one in junior, and then one in the National Hockey League, and both were really quick. Within 4 days, I really felt myself again. I think I was back playing within 7 to 10 days, and there were no real issues after. Minor things that everyone deals with concussions, but nothing major. And then this one was kind of going along the same way. It felt really good right away. Obviously, I came back, I played that game, but something was just something was off, and it wasn't so much. They just know more about it. It wasn't the actual concussion. There was just other things going on, basically. You'd have to talk to the doctors about this, but there were just other things that lead to these headaches that you feel. It's not so much the brain; they're able to handle it. So I was just. I reset. I knew it was the right thing because, I wasn't helping my teammates if I wasn't myself. So I took some time. I believe I took another, week, 10 days off after the first game I played. When I came back, I was just more confident in it. And I knew that, like I said, when you step on the ice, injuries are a non-factor. And for me to do my job, I have to feel like I'm able to do it. And, after the first experience, it just wasn't right. I told the trainers they obviously did the right thing, which I have confidence in them to do, and they took care of me and made sure that when I did come back, I was ready to go.
I have a few quick questions for you, Brendan. Very quick questions. How good is, Laurent wants to know, how good is Alexander Romanov?
Oh, he's good. He's strong. I don't think people realize just how strong he is. He's going to push guys around, and obviously, how important defensemen are. We've been able to add a couple, but for him coming in, I think he's going to have an impact on our team. He's hungry to get into the National Hockey League. You could tell how excited he was around the bubble. Good character kid, and everyone around enjoyed being around him. And then when it was time to work, he worked at those Black Ace skates, and that was something I think everyone around us noticed is the work that he was putting in. And he wasn't playing. He knew he wasn't going to play any games, and he still put in the work, and it was pretty impressive to see. And he's physically ready to play.
Other question for you: what's your favorite team to play against?
I still love playing Boston. More so in Boston. There's just something about going to TD Gardens with
and
the fans.
Sticking it to them.
You have to win. It's more fun when you win, obviously. There's just something about it. We've had some pretty cool games against them, comeback wins, and obviously we had the outdoor game. It's just it's a fun rivalry to be a part of.
We have some people connected everywhere around the world tonight, and I got an interesting question from Maria. Maria wants to know if in a post-COVID world you'd be interested in going to play with the NHL overseas, having the experience of playing overseas NHL games.
Yeah, of course. Those are you saw obviously teams doing that before this pandemic, and I think everyone that came back had positive things to say. So. I haven't really traveled a whole bunch. I went and played the World Championships over in Russia. We spent a week of training camp in Prague, but other than that, I haven't spent really any time in Europe. So it'd be pretty cool for me to see it, and, to play overseas in front of European fans would be pretty fun.
Brendan, I have another cheeky question, but I'm going to ask it. How high up on your list of Christmas gifts is the medical team at the Montreal General Hospital, considering all the work you've been giving them?
Those guys just deserve everything they get. Regardless, obviously we're going through a pandemic, and everyone knows the work that the hours of work that they've put in. But they've always done that. They're probably getting a little bit more recognition now, but these guys are. You can't speak about the time and effort they put into obviously the community, but also to us. And for us for us to do what we need to do, we definitely need them. So it's the appreciation level can't really be described.
Brendan, you're getting ready for another season. Are you looking forward to going back into a different type of bubble for the season?
Yeah, we'll see. It's obviously nothing's really figured out or decided yet. There's some talk of the All-Canadian division. There's some talk of going into bubbles and hub cities again. There's some talk of everyone playing in their own rink. So We'll see. The bubble experience was different. I think it'd probably be easier now that we've kind of gone through it once, so we know what to expect. But whatever we got to do to play, we talked about it earlier, we're pretty fortunate to play. So whatever we got to do, I think we're all prepared to do it.
Brendan Gallagher, thank you very much for your time tonight. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the foundation, the Montreal General Hospital Foundation. We wish you the best season possible. If we could have, 20-some players with your heart on the team, whether we win the Stanley Cup or not, everyone would be happy after every game. Stay healthy, Brendan. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
C'est comme ça que va se terminer notre troisième période, mais pas avant que je vous rappelle que vous pouvez soutenir la Fondation en participant à notre encan silencieux ou bien en faisant un don. We'll end this third period, but not before I remind you that you can support our foundation, the Montreal General Hospital Foundation, in this fundraising event by participating in our silent auction. Silent auction will be operative until 10 p.m. I believe there are great prizes to be auctioned tonight on this evening and this event. And the best way to end this would be to have overtime. Eh bien oui, on a une période de surtemps qui est prévue dans cet événement Hockey 911. Juste avant, je veux remercier à nouveau Fiera Capital comme commanditaire, remercier le groupe des chaînes qui était commanditaire de la première période, remercier Bell qui était commanditaire de la deuxième période et remercier aussi Molson Coors qui était commanditaire de la troisième période. I'd like to just take a moment to thank Fiera Capital once again for sponsoring our warm-up. Thank you to the Groupe des Chaînes for sponsoring our first period. Thank you to Bell for sponsoring our second period. And thank you to Molson Coors for sponsoring our third period. This overtime is sponsored by Banque Nationale. Merci à la Banque Nationale de commanditer, de soutenir cette période de surtemps. Et pour cette période de surtemps, je vais rejoindre immédiatement Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. I'm going to speak a few moments with Laurent Duvernay-Tardif in this overtime. Bonsoir, Laurent.
Bonsoir.
Laurent, on vient de parler en long et en large avec plusieurs joueurs de hockey. Je ne suis pas sûr que j'ai entendu la réponse à cette question-là. Est-ce que tu as joué, toi, au hockey lorsque tu étais plus jeune?
Écoute, j'aurais aimé ça, mais j'ai jamais joué au hockey. Mes parents étaient des fans de ski de fond, d'autres sports de glisse hivernale. Ça n'a jamais été un add-on pour moi d'aller à l'aréna le week-end. Mais qui sait, peut-être que ça m'aurait plu aussi.
Et je suis sûr que tu aurais été bon. Les athlètes sont en général très, très bons dans peu importe le sport. Tu aurais été un gros format quand même de joueur de hockey. Ça aurait été intéressant. Laurent, tu es la personne à qui on veut parler là parce qu'on est en pleine pandémie. Évidemment, tu as eu le succès que tout le monde te connaît avec les Chiefs de Kansas City. Cette année, tu as pris une décision courageuse, généreuse, celle de laisser de côté le football pour reprendre ton autre passion qui est la médecine. D'ailleurs, je veux souligner qu'il y a 24 heures, 48 heures, le Panthéon du football t'a rendu hommage. J'imagine que ça t'a fait plaisir. Tu l'as dit à plusieurs reprises, mais redis-nous comment ce processus-là s'est passé dans ta tête de dire « Hey, la priorité cette année, c'est la médecine, c'est d'être sur la première ligne. »
En fait, je pense que ça s'est fait assez graduellement. Après le Super Bowl, évidemment, je suis retourné aider aux premières lignes en CHSLD à Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu pour venir en aide. Puis j'ai fait vraiment partie, je pense, d'un mouvement de professionnels de la santé, mais aussi de bibliothécaires, de gens qui avaient pris leur retraite, de gens qui avaient perdu leur emploi, qui ont voulu aller donner un coup de main. Puis on dirait que ce que j'ai vu dans ce milieu de travail-là, en CHSLD, c'était l'impact de la pandémie, mais pas l'impact seulement sur les patients, mais aussi sur les professionnels de la santé, sur tout le monde qui venait aider, sur les familles. Puis on dirait que quand est venu le temps de prendre la décision de retourner à Kansas City, ça a pesé très lourd dans la balance. Et puis, pour moi, c'était un peu un non-sens d'un point de vue extrêmement personnel d'aller aux États-Unis puis de me mettre moi à risque, mais surtout de mettre ma communauté à risque après ce que j'avais vu, après ce que j'avais expérimenté. Puis tout ça, pour mon amour un peu égoïste de mon sport. Donc, c'est un peu ce qui a motivé ma décision. Ça n'a pas été une décision facile, puis je te dirais qu'il y a eu beaucoup de périodes de doute. Surtout quand, au début, les camps d'entraînement, tout allait très, très bien. Puis je suis encore impliqué avec l'équipe au niveau de la NFL puis de l'association des joueurs qui mettent les protocoles en place, etc. Là, pour moi, c'est évidemment une super expérience d'un point de vue de santé publique. Mais au début, il y a eu une période de doute. Puis je pense que j'ai appris à vivre avec ma décision puis à accepter le fait que selon moi, c'était la bonne. Est-ce que je reste en forme? Oui, je reste en forme. J'espère retourner à Kansas City l'année prochaine. Mais en ce moment, je pense que mon focus, c'est d'aider, c'est de contribuer. Puis on dirait que j'ai tellement reçu, pas tant seulement que joueur de football, mais aussi en tant que médecin qui a pu faire ses études dans une super bonne université au Québec, que maintenant, c'était le temps de donner. Puis je sentais qu'on avait besoin de moi.
Laurent, ce genre de... D'abord, c'est tout à ton honneur, hein? Mais ce genre de décision-là, ça se prend quand on a grandi, quand on a été baigné dans un environnement où les valeurs de générosité, les valeurs humaines sont extrêmement... sont privilégiées, sont mises de l'avant et aussi démontrées. Je ne sais pas c'est quoi la réponse que tu vas donner à ma question, mais il doit y avoir autour de toi parents, frères, sœurs, cousins, amis. Il doit y avoir du monde qui a vraiment des belles valeurs pour que tu en viennes à prendre cette décision-là à ton tour.
Oui, absolument. Je pense que d'emblée, j'aurais envie de dire mes parents. Puis, en fait, j'ai envie de te raconter une anecdote par rapport à ça. Tu sais, quand j'étais jeune, mes parents m'ont toujours dit l'important dans la vie, c'est d'avoir des projets, c'est de foncer, c'est de pas avoir peur. Puis, moi ça s'est matérialisé, cette espèce de moto-là, quand en 2014, il me restait 16 mois avant de compléter mon doctorat en médecine, puis j'avais peut-être la chance de pouvoir évoluer dans une équipe NFL, de me faire repêcher, d'accéder à un camp. Puis c'est sûr que maintenant, ça fait du sens. C'est la moindre des choses de dire oui, il fallait que tu apprennes cette chance-là de jouer dans la NFL. Mais à l'époque, de retarder ma graduation de médecine pour parcourir, pour essayer d'atteindre ce rêve-là, alors que je jouais dans une des pires universités au Canada au football, ça relevait quasiment de l'impossible. Puis mes parents m'ont toujours dit de foncer, puis de pas d'être libre, c'est de pas avoir d'attache d'une certaine façon. Puis il faut profiter. Puis je me rapporte maintenant 7 ans plus tard, puis je pense que le fait de voir le football comme une expérience, comme une opportunité qui m'a été donnée, mais qui va pas nécessairement me définir en tant qu'individu dans 20 ans, dans 30 ans, à cause de la médecine, à cause des autres projets que j'aimerais pouvoir mettre en place, ça fait en sorte que la décision est peut-être plus facile à prendre. Je sais pas si ça fait du sens, je suis parti de loin pour répondre à ta question, mais j'ai l'impression que quand tu sens que tu es privilégié, tu es conscient que tu es privilégié, puis que tu as saisi une opportunité, que tu l'as vécu à 100%, puis je ne vais pas parler au passé parce que mon but, c'est de retourner à Kansas City. Mais ça fait du sens de donner aussi de la place à autre chose dans ta vie. Puis je pense que aussi mes parents m'ont toujours dit que l'argent, passer un certain montant, ça devient un peu superflu. Puis on dirait que ça aussi, ça m'a aidé à accepter veux pas l'aspect financier, là, la diminution de salaire qui vient avec ne pas jouer cette saison.
On ne peut pas faire autrement que d'être impressionné et d'être aussi reconnaissant pour la décision que tu as prise. You just spoke, Laurent, of seeing football not as an end, not as the be-all and end-all, but as one of many experiences. So the experience of going back on the front line and being this other part of who you are, how has that experience been?
Pretty challenging. It's weird because as a medical student, like all my exposure in clinical context so far has been as a medical student because I haven't started my residency yet. And I think as a medical student, you kind of like drop off into like new environment, whether it's obstetric, gynecology, internal medicine, and you got to learn as quickly as you can. And your mindset is always to, at least for me, was to be as efficient as possible, optimize my time. And then I went into a long-term care facility, and then the mindset is totally different because nobody's going back home. Nobody's going to suddenly walk and be cured. And you realize that the positive is really, really subtle. And you're trying to fight against a virus, but at the end of the day, when you look at it from a bigger perspective, everybody is going to eventually die in that long-term care facility. So then it's not about optimizing, the blood pressure medication or the treatment. It's about giving comfort and making sure that those patients preserve their dignity and bringing a little smile on their face. So instead of like going from room to room as quickly as possible, you got to take time and put yourself in the patient perspective where like they haven't seen anybody for the past 12 weeks, no family, no friends. So you're their only human contact, and you cannot let the gown and the visor and the gloves and the like stop you from having a human interaction with the person in front of you. And I think that's really what I'm going to remember from that experience is all those little moments where I was able to connect with a patient, even though there was like a lot of barrier between us in order to protect us from the virus. And I think that's going to make me a better physician in the future.
Laurent, je tentais de te poser une question et je ne veux pas diminuer l'importance ni du sport ni de ce que tu fais comme médecin. Mais est-ce qu'il y a un rapport entre la douleur ou la déception qu'on sent quand on perd dans son sport et la douleur que l'on sent quand on est témoin, j'allais dire de la misère, mais de la peine et de la douleur?
Bonne question. J'aurais tendance à dire que oui, à certains égards, mais la défaite au football, à moins que ce soit la dernière partie de l'année qui t'empêche d'aller au Super Bowl ou qui termine ta saison abruptement, on dirait que tu dois te relever. Tu dois l'oublier tellement rapidement. Tu sais, nous, on joue à Denver, en Arizona, le dimanche soir. On revient à 5-6 heures le matin, puis on a un meeting à 2 heures. On va faire la sieste, on revient, puis on recommence la semaine de préparation. Tu sais, les gens, ils voient le football comme étant un match par semaine, mais on est dans les facilities à chaque jour. Puis tu peux pas constamment te rappeler. Tu dois apprendre de tes erreurs puis move on. Puis c'est un peu ce que je vois comme similitude avec le milieu hospitalier ou du moins les CHSLD en ce moment, c'est que tu peux pas t'apitoyer. Il y a des moments qui vont définitivement laisser une marque. Des gens qu'on a dû prendre quasiment contre leur gré parce qu'il y avait des tests de COVID positifs puis les sortir de leur chambre alors que ça faisait des années qu'ils étaient dans leur chambre, puis c'est leur chez-soi, puis ils s'accrochent aux portes, puis c'est des gens qui sont déments, puis c'est des images auxquelles tu penses souvent, mais tu dois te questionner pour essayer de t'améliorer puis te dire comment j'aurais pu être meilleur, au même titre qu'un athlète, je pense, est très critique de sa performance sur le terrain, mais tu dois move on, tu dois penser à comment tu peux faire du bien ailleurs, à comment tu peux performer en tant qu'athlète d'une autre façon, puis peaufiner ton jeu, que ce soit en médecine ou que ce soit en tant qu'athlète.
Clairement des similitudes. I got two quick questions for you. One football and one medical. Has your experience, your recent experience, led you to find what you want to specialize in?
I always said I wanted to go into emergency medicine, and I think it's still the case. Right now, because I opted out from the 2020 season, but I'm still under contract for the 2021 season, I had a year in front of me, and public health is always something I wanted to do. So I enrolled in a master in public health at Harvard University this coming year. So I'm going to finish that and then most likely go into family medicine and do a +1 in emergency medicine. That's the plan.
It's a big plan. Like all of your other plans, it's a big plan. The football-related question is about the rules in the NFL. I'm not super familiar with the rules, but since you decided to opt out, it seems like it's not a guarantee that you can go back and play next year. Are you going to feel bad if your last season was that
was winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, winning the Super Bowl. I know. The answer is in the question.
No. I don't think I would be sad. I think I have still some football left in me, though. But it's a tough business. Like every year, there's like 160 universities in the States that graduate 40 students, and even if 2 or 3 of them have NFL potential, there's so many people that are pushing, and football is really different than hockey when it comes to contract, because most of the contract are not guaranteed. So if somebody's cheaper, better, younger, healthier than you, you're out. And there's a saying in the NFL that you don't want to give any exposure to a rookie or to anybody, because that's the beginning of the end for you. So whether it's like practice snap, training camp snap, walkthrough snap, take all the snap you can, and a snap is a play, like Ready Set Hot, because otherwise you're giving an opportunity to somebody who's cheaper than you, and you don't want to do that.
And it's at the same time, I'd venture to say that being younger, being cheaper, being faster, whatever, might not be more important than being so noble and so worthy. That's my 2 cents about that. On a parlé beaucoup de blessures, Laurent, avec Brendan Gallagher, avec Shea Weber. Nick Suzuki a été épargné des blessures. Toi, dans ton sport, les blessures?
Et l'association des joueurs dit souvent que les risques de blessures passés 3 ans dans la NFL sont de 100%. Puis évidemment, le football est un sport de contact. J'avais tendance à dire jusqu'à il y a 1 ou 2 ans que j'avais été plutôt chanceux en termes de blessures, que ce soit à McGill ou dans la NFL. Mais là, je me suis blessé au genou, je me suis fracturé le fibula, qui m'a fait manquer la plus grande partie de la saison 2018. Donc, les blessures ont commencé, je te dirais, à s'accumuler. Mais moi, c'est pas tant les blessures qui vont dans les médias, je pense, qui font mal. C'est la blessure du quotidien. C'est le wear and tear. C'est les doigts, c'est les mains, c'est les épaules. Mon sport est très répétitif. À chaque jeu, 65 jeux par partie, 16 fois par année, je dois entrer en contact avec quelqu'un qui est plus gros que moi, qui court comme un train, puis le stopper pour permettre à Patrick Mahomes de faire sa passe. Il y a un contact et une physicalité qui est extrêmement présente, puis qui, elle, laisse des marques plus subtiles, mais que j'ai l'impression vont peut-être plus être présentes dans 20-30 ans, si tu vois ce que je veux dire.
Je comprends totalement ce que tu veux dire. Have you spoken this season? You've opted out of this season, but I'm sure you're still friends with Patrick Mahomes and other players. Have you spoken to your colleagues, your teammates?
Yeah, for sure. Right now they're in bye week, so we just had a phone call with a few guys earlier today. They're great. They're great, but it's a challenging time, I think, for everybody. And what they were describing to me when it comes to, all the discipline and the pressure that they have, not to expose themselves to the virus, because we don't, like NFL choose not to go for a bubble, so everybody's going home at night. Everybody can, there's fan in I think half of the stadium, so like family can come over and watch games. So like they were just talking to me about how hard it is to say no and to try to isolate yourself to the best of your ability right now.
Do any of them think your decision, no matter how noble it is, was insane?
Yeah, at the beginning. Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. But I think I made a lot of insane decision throughout my career in the NFL to the eyes of a lot of my teammates. So I think they're used to it. It's like, oh, whatever Larry's doing, it must be right or something like that. You know, it's yeah.
Larry does Larry. That's what you need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and other people do who they are. J'ai une question de Simon qui dit les études t'ont sans doute rendu un meilleur joueur de football. Et sa question, c'est comment le football t'a rendu un meilleur étudiant et aussi un meilleur médecin?
Je pense que c'est la capacité d'adaptation. À chaque année, tu finis ta saison de football, puis tu passes du super-héros, tu sais, ça fait 16 semaines qu'il y a une équipe complète qui est là pour optimiser tes performances, des nutritionnistes, des physiothérapeutes, des coachs. Puis là, tout d'un coup, ben, il reste plus de temps au tableau afficheur, t'es perdu, puis là, tu te retrouves 5 jours plus tard au General en train de faire une rotation en médecine interne ou à l'urgence. Puis là, maintenant, t'es étudiant en médecine, tu sais, un peu au bas de la chaîne alimentaire du monde médical qui doit être là plus tôt que tout le monde, puis qui doit tout apprendre. Puis ce changement de perspective-là a toujours été ce qui a été le plus difficile pour moi. Mais en même temps, je pense que c'est ce qui m'a aidé aussi à être un meilleur étudiant, parce qu'un étudiant en médecine, c'est ça, je le disais tantôt, c'est quelqu'un qui se fait parachuter dans plein de départements puis qui doit apprendre. Fait que je dirais ça, la capacité à s'adapter, puis aussi la capacité à prendre des décisions rationnelles dans des environnements stressants. Tu sais, au football, c'est un jeu qui est tellement fragmenté. Tu es à la porte des buts, 3e et 15. Tu dois convertir un premier essai, sinon la game est hors de portée. Il faut que tu fasses abstraction de la foule. Il faut que tu fasses abstraction du bruit du joueur en avant de toi qui t'insulte. Puis là, tu dois prendre ta respiration, analyser la situation, voir où est-ce que tu es sur le terrain, savoir c'est quoi les possibilités que la défensive se mette dans telle formation, qu'il y ait une pression, peu importe. Puis après ça, exécuter. Puis je trouve qu'en médecine, il y a un peu de ça aussi. Surtout en urgence, tu sais jamais nécessairement quel cas va arriver. Puis quand le cas arrive, ben, il faut que tu regardes de faire abstraction un peu du chaos organisé autour de toi, puis tu focuses sur airway, breathing, circulation, les signes vitaux, etc. Puis je trouve que le football m'a aidé à avoir ce raisonnement critique et logique là.
Tu connais l'hôpital général de Montréal. You know the Montreal General Hospital really well. This is an event, a fundraising event for the Montreal General Hospital. What do you have to say about that hospital and how important, especially for someone who wants to do emergency room work, a trauma center like the trauma center at the Montreal General Hospital, how important that is?
It's super important. I think it's well known internationally, and it is, I think, with Sacré-Cœur probably our 2 biggest trauma center in the province, and I think we got to be proud of that. And I think, for me, who wants to do emergency medicine, I've done my core rotation of emergency medicine at the General, but also 2 other months as an elective in emergency medicine, because that's where you get your exposure when it comes to trauma. And I know pretty well a few doctors that works there, Dr. Lacroix, Dr. Primavesi, who was the associate dean that actually allowed me to pursue a career in the NFL and is an emergency physician at the Montreal General. And I had the pleasure of working with him. I feel like the whole team in the emergency department is really incredible. And I think for me, it's kind of a goal, to be able to work in those kind of environment in the future.
Laurent, je veux te dire un énorme merci pour ton temps ce soir, pour la décision que tu as prise d'aller en première ligne, de te servir pas juste de ton talent d'athlète, mais de ce que tu as appris en médecine. Super Bowl this year? What's your pick?
Chiefs.
Against?
Well, I think the Chiefs are going to beat. Well, the Chiefs are going to beat the Steelers. That's probably going to be the Super Bowl in itself, because they're the 2 best team in the circuit right now.
Yep.
And then they're probably going to beat maybe New Orleans. in the Super Bowl, or Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay would be a lot of coverage, a lot of media coverage. But Ben Roethlisberger avec les Steelers, Drew Brees avec la Nouvelle-Orléans, c'est à voir. Merci beaucoup, Laurent. Thank you very much, Laurent.
Mais merci à toi.
Bonne
soirée.
Yep, thanks a lot. Mais c'est comme ça que se termine notre prolongation. Je vous invite à aller voir notre encamp silencieux qui se poursuit jusqu'à 22h. Merci de nous soutenir, de soutenir la Fondation de l'Hôpital Général de Montréal. Merci aussi d'avoir participé à cet événement de ce soir. Hockey 911, Hockey 911. Merci à nos invités de ce soir, Claude Julien, Kirk Muller, Brandon Gallagher, Shea Weber, Nick Suzuki, le personnel médical avec le Dr Mulder, le personnel de thérapeutique du Canadien, France Margaret Bélanger également. Merci à tous ceux qui ont organisé cette soirée. Folks, this is it for us. Thank you for supporting us, for attending this event. Hope it was enjoyable for you guys. You can support our foundation at the Montreal General Hospital by participating in our silent auction right now, or just donating. Please do so if you can. The work that is done at the Montreal General Hospital is so incredibly important. Thank you to our guests tonight, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, we just spoke to. Thank you to Claude Julien, to Kirk Muller, to Shea Weber, to Brendan Gallagher. Thank you to Nick Suzuki. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to Chantal Maccabé, who participated as well. Thank you to France Margaret Bélanger at the Montreal Canadiens. Dr. Mulder, we spoke to before, le personnel, Graham, du personnel des thérapeutes de l'équipe. Thank you so much. Vous pouvez participer à notre encamp silencieux encore jusqu'à 22h. You can still participate in our silent auction until 10 o'clock. Thank you all. On espère une bonne saison pour le Canadien de Montréal. On espère vous retrouver l'an prochain pour un autre événement, Hockey 911. We wish the best, all the best to the Montreal Canadiens this year with the next season. And hopefully we get to do this again next year, another Hockey 911 event. Thanks a lot.